I want to take a drink break.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, I'm going to take a drink break. Oh, yeah, I want to take a drink break.
Can you go so that Sean doesn't come back before you've even left?
All right, I'm back.
Oh, God, no, he never left. He's kidding.
He's not kidding.
Nobody could pee that fast.
I always pee that fast. Again, I poop in less than 5 minutes.
Stop being such a military pooper. You gotta adapt to public sector, man.
No.
Categorical. I'm gonna do 20 years in the military. I'm gonna retire and never work again.
Well, that's fine, but does that mean you have to take short poops for?
Yeah, I want to maximize my gaming time. I'm not gonna spend.
Wake up, everybody. Today is January 14th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the things we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Palashi, joined by my co-hosts, Jason Wright and Sean Mybers. If you decide you like us and want to see Karch try to control 4 drinks in Jason, spoiler alert, I can't. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, why don't we start with you? How you doing?
I'm exasperated.
When aren't you when you're around me?
God, it's like amateur hour.
Every day.
Yeah,
Not until we hit 100 episodes. Not until we hit 100 episodes.
That's when you hit your... What do you got to be? 10,000 hours to be an expert?
I don't know. I'll never hit at 10,000 hours in anything.
That is what Malcolm Gladwell says, yes.
You're going to hit 10,000 hours in podcasting.
That's depressing.
Is it depressing?
Rachel hit 250 followers on Instagram. What are we doing wrong, boys?
We are...
Not pretty ladies?
Not posting on Instagram.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like one thing.
Go with not pretty ladies. I bet I'd be confident saying that any of our wives could beat our following.
Absolutely.
We'll write the episodes and then they can be the face.
Oh, you might be onto something.
I think I am. And they can do all the work too.
We'll do a gender bend episode and just have our spouses on.
They'll pretend to be us. They'll say they'll use our names and stuff. It'll be great.
I'm gonna Sharpie a beard onto Lauren.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. All right, Jason, I think you have a question for us. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way.
Yeah, this isn't a listener question. This is a real life question. Okay. It's for both of you. Okay, would you rather poop once per day or once every 3 days, but on that third day, when you poop, you do it 3 times in one day?
So I just want everybody listening to know that this question was not a spur-of-the-moment thing induced by any kind of substance or good mood. He came up with this days ago. And my answer is definitely once a day, because that's pretty much what I'm used to now. And I had a 3-time-a-day situation not too long ago, and I hated that day. That was a bad day for Karch's body. So I don't want that to be the rest of my life.
But you did go back and forth, you said.
Right. Just, but once I started weighing the pros and the cons, there are no pros to not pooping in a day. There's no pro. In fact, now I don't get to do that at 10 o'clock in the morning, just after our morning meeting at work. I don't get to, waste those 5 minutes on company time. Yeah, but first of all, 5 minutes, that's a quick one.
No.
Well, I was just, throwing out time.
Sean, I don't need to know how quickly the military. I mean, I'm sure it's very efficient poops, but I'm in the private sector, and private sector poops are like a minimum of 15 minutes. Because otherwise, that's a waste of a poop break.
I don't like pooping at work because, especially like underway pooping's terrible because we don't even really have single ply toilet paper. We have toilet paper made of like splinters and
to just discourage the pooping.
But also because it's the only thing. Like if you put a double ply toilet paper down our sewage system will clog. So
that makes sense.
Like when I'm in port, I do everything I can to either poop before I go to work or poop after I get back from work, so I can use toilet paper at my house because my butt's at least going to get some comfort in TLC half of the year when I'm not underway.
Well, see, and then this makes sense for you though, then, because maybe once every 3 days limits the exposure of that toilet paper.
3 times a day, he's definitely going. He doesn't want to go.
If I poop 3 times a day and have to wipe my butt 3 times in one day with that toilet paper, I'm going to be bleeding from my butt.
No, yeah, but it's only one day. It's just every 3 days. You know what I'm saying?
But you also said 3 times a day.
Good. It's not 3 times a day. It's
but you said you 3 times on that day is what I'm saying.
Day, yes.
Yeah, on that day.
I don't,
and that's what he's saying.
I'd rather space it out and give my butt time to heal from the poor quality toilet paper than destroy my butt once every 3 days.
Okay. I mean, then that's fair. That's fair.
You're pushing really hard for the second option. I want to say that you picked that one. Is that what's going on?
No, I did. I don't. It's the funny thing is I don't even really have an answer to this question.
You're the worst. All right, housekeeping.
No. So I do want to answer it. I would go once per day. But it would be nice because I am like remote. Every other day I'm remote, and then like the other days I'm at work. If I could time that time I have 3 in one day with a day that I'm at work, like actually in the work office, I'd be okay with that. Because then that's like an extra 30 minutes easily that I just don't have to be at my desk.
Hey, guess what?
I hate every part of this discussion.
I hate it too, but you're gonna hate this more because guess what? I didn't record on my video.
No,
I did. Apparently, I missed the button.
No, are you serious?
I'm not having this discussion again.
You're just going to put my face in the, a picture of me.
That's fine. We'll sync it up later.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough of that. I think we will move on to housekeeping. Like, sub, follow, especially on YouTube, podcast services. If you're listening to us there somehow, some way, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. We're at neverfreetoplay. Karch is a witty dude, but he's not going to blow up your feed.
Exactly. I'm going to respect your time.
Yeah, he's going to respect. Exactly. We're not one of these influencer groups that tries to monopolize your time. We respect your time because we are never free to play. Shout outs. We're going to shout out to Dr. Robert for liking and subscribing. And I think it's possible he may be guest hosting at some point in the near future. So shout out to you, Robert. Also, I want to give one other shout out. I thought this was funny. Josh texted me the other day and he did the math. There's a lot of math, a lot of logistical math. He single-handedly has just as many kids as all of NFTP combined. That blew my mind.
That's not a hard number to reach.
Josh.
Not a hard number to reach. But still, congratulations on that.
It's
gigantic.
3. It's 3 because of Greg.
Okay, fair.
That's a lot
I
of
see.
kids.
We're including Greg.
Yeah, we're including him because he edits and he's been on twice. So anyway, I did the same thing. I was like, you have more. And he's like, what about Greg? And I was like, oh yeah, Greg.
Josh is the only one who remembers Greg. That should tell you something about how we feel and about his position here.
All right, we'll move on to corrections. I only have one correction for myself, and that is that I accidentally said GTX 3080 and I meant RTX 3080. So apologies to the techies. I have sinned and I am repenting. Karch, looks like you have a correction here. I'll let you do it.
Yes, the Monster Hunter demo does actually have a tutorial. It's separate from the mission where you hunt the monster. There's 2 tutorials, actually. One for just like, hey, I've never played this game before. And then another for how do you ride monsters, because nobody's ever done that before, so they wanted to give people a nice little arena to test that out. And I did that after the fact. But yeah, I said in the previous episode, like, oh, this is brutal. Don't play this if you've never played Monster Hunter. Go ahead and play it if you've never played Monster Hunter, because of course they included a tutorial. I was just so excited, I jumped right in. That's it.
I'm really sad that we didn't queue up correction music on that.
Well, we will.
Or will we? Only time will tell.
All right, let's get into some news. Right off the top, we've got more Cyberpunk drama. I was kind of hoping that they would just shut up so we wouldn't have to talk about it for another week, but we do. We're not going to let them off the hook. CD Projekt posted a video responding to Cyberpunk 2077. Sean, I'm going to let you take over since you watched it, and then we will pepper our opinions with it afterward.
So the video was, to me, the video didn't say a lot. Like, they iterated, hey, we don't have any mandatory overtime for the patches that they're working on for Cyberpunk 2077, and they're going to it's their goal to not have overtime in the future. But nothing saying that they're like not having mandatory overtime doesn't change the fact that if the culture of your company, is going to push people towards overtime, that's not the case. So like I feel like it was a very straw man point they were trying to make there. They did lay out their roadmap. So basically, in the coming couple of weeks, they're supposed to have patch 1.1, and then with a few weeks after that, patch 1.2. Which the big goals of those are to solve a lot of the glitches and try to bring up the performance of the base level last gen consoles. But that was the interesting too is that the co-founder there repeatedly iterated like, we built this game to get the best possible performance we could get on PCs, thinking we could go back and make them work on consoles. And it's like, and we were working at it right up to the end, but you're trying to tell me that you optimized this thing to run well on modern PCs, and then thought they'd work on 7-year-old consoles. Like it was very much to me an attempt to appease and try to save face, but it did put anything to bed. And it doesn't really say that they to me, it didn't really indicate that they learned the lesson. Besides, they just want people to stop being angry at them.
I think we can say at this point that CD Projekt Red are just bad console developers. They don't develop well for console, because it's not like you say everyone, and it's not just you, lots of people say that. And yes, when you compare the idea of, or you compare the product that a PC could output versus a 7-year-old machine, it sounds bad, but like people do this all the time, every single day, and is it easier if you're trying to upscale to a PC? Maybe. People have the same problems.
We've seen the reverse with was it Arkham City?
That was the really bad one, but people have it all the time. Nier Automata is still trash on PC to this day, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Horizon Zero Dawn had some troubles when it launched.
Yep. But my point being, it's not impossible, and they botched it on The Witcher, and I heard on Witcher 3, and if I'm not mistaken, The Witcher 2 had a lot of trouble too, like compared to its PC counterpart, the PC version. And so it just like, how do you not learn that you guys need to maybe take extra care, not just because you started optimizing for PC, but because you just don't seem to have a good grasp on the console ports? I don't know.
Not to mention,
which is amazing to me. Like to me, the benefit as a developer of a console is the exact hardware. Whereas to optimize for a PC, you have to worry about all these different possible combinations of GPUs and motherboards and all the various components. Like a console should be the easiest thing to develop for, because you know exactly what it's going to be.
Well, and The Witcher 3 came out on PS4. It's not like they've never made a PS4 game before.
No, and exactly, yes. But as far as like that specific architecture, you mean? Like they would be familiar with it.
It's x86, so it is, the same.
Right, modified slightly. Still, there's still those things. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
They've developed for this exact hardware before on their last game, their last big game. And the other thing I just really dislike when companies take this tone. Mm-hmm. To me, it seems disingenuous. And I just wish more companies could just be like, yes, this is our fault. Yes, this is our bad. Here's how we're going to make it right. Instead of trying to place blame on external factors. Even if that's true, like I understand it's not a comfortable position to be in to try to say, yes, it's my fault. But that's the reality, right? And so own up to it and just like apologize. Say what you're going to do to fix it, and let's move on. And instead of trying to take this tone of like, this is kind of our fault, but it's not really. I don't like it personally. I do not like when companies take this approach.
I feel like they didn't have to say anything either. Like they already said a bunch of stuff up till now. We already know what the situation is with refunds. Just post this image we have here that we'll go over in a second, and then let us know when it's back on the PSN store. Like that's all you had to do. You didn't. At this point, the sorries and even if it was the most genuine apology, I probably would have accepted it as someone who doesn't really care. But a lot of people would have still been really upset. So at this point, you have nothing to gain from apologizing either. Just shut up and go away. Because now I'm talking about it again. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But here we are talking about it. So, but yes, we have a. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so as Curtis mentioned, they did put out a roadmap for 2021. So as I mentioned, I think they said within 10 days, you'll have patch 1.1. Within a few weeks after that, you'll have patch 1.2, which are primarily focused on bug fixes and improving the console performance. And then pretty much what they said was sometime in the first half of 2021, you'll get some free DLCs. And then they expect, and they said this got pushed back because of the work of the work they're trying to, the bug fix work and the last gen console work they're doing. They pushed back until the second half of 21, releasing the free next gen console update.
It's so late. It's so late. It's going to be almost a year by the time that's going to get pushed back again. They have no reason to. We have no reason to believe that this won't be delayed. Like each one of these things won't be delayed at least weeks, if not months, for each single one, which will push back the one after that too. Should have just put it on PC. Should have just put it on PC. You still would have made a crazy amount of money. People would have run out to buy PC, and then people would have been foaming at the mouth still to buy it at the end of 2021, and it would have been the game of the, it would have been such a better situation for them if they just.
Well, they were the darling of the gaming developer community there, pretty much going into this, and now they are the opposite. They've burnt all of their goodwill.
It's true. That's true. What do you think their DLC will be anyway? Is it just gonna be more story stuff, or are they gonna actually
that's what Witcher 3 basically had, which was it was expansion story DLC.
What were you saying?
That
Jason?
would be really cool if they put out something the magnitude of what was it, Iron and Wine or Blood and Wine?
Blood and Wine.
Yeah, if they put something out that magnitude for free, that would be a nice little peace offering of like,
I would imagine because there was one tinier DLC before that, right? I would imagine maybe you'll get the tiny one for free, and then you'll get, if they do a bigger one, it'll be charged.
It should be free for anyone who bought the game at launch.
They don't do that.
I know, but I'm just saying it should be.
Sure.
And that's what they could have said today.
It should be more than story too, though. Like considering the kinds of the game that they wanted this to be, what everybody wanted it to be. If it's not if it doesn't significantly alter like how you play the game.
You're talking almost like I guess we mentioned it last week. What we don't really want it to get is a No Man's Sky type of thing where they continue to actually expand upon the mechanics of the game.
Well, I don't want them to get the same amount of goodwill, right? And that's just me being petty. So
yeah,
that is you being petty. I wouldn't mind it because I would like to play a good version of this game.
Sure, I know you, and like I said, I'm being petty. They should still put it out, but people should still be like, "Thanks, I hate you." Give them the money and play it anyway.
Best of both worlds.
There we go. Jason's happy. I'm happy.
Sean
all right, on to some happier news. Lucasfilm Games is now the official identity of all things Lucasfilm's video games related. So the Star Wars people came out with, the Lucasfilm people came out with this announcement. They're resurrecting the LucasArts brand, and they're calling it Lucasfilm Games, which is pretty much going to be the same exact thing.
Which is actually what LucasArts was originally called.
Oh, it was Lucasfilm Games?
Yeah, it was called Lucasfilm Games, and then LucasArts Entertainment something, and then just LucasArts.
Mm-hmm. So this was announced on Monday or Tuesday. So this whole thing came out very strangely.
Yes.
They announced this and then nothing else, and everyone's like, "What does this mean? What do you got planned? What's going on?" And then the very next day is when they announced the Indiana Jones game, I believe, right?
Yep.
And then after that, either the same day or the day after that, again, why didn't they just wait and do this all in one day? Whatever, I don't know. They announced that Ubisoft will be making a open world Star Wars game. That means nothing at this point.
It's Ubisoft Massive, who's behind whatchamacallit. I'm blanking.
Division.
Thank you. The Division 1 and 2.
Yep. So yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I'm excited. Yeah, I think moving away from EA having the exclusive rights on Star Wars can only be good for Star Wars. There is the potential problem of kind of seeing what we saw, I guess, there, before EA got the exclusive rights, but there was a flood of Star Wars games everywhere that kind of did flood the market, and a lot of them were not great games. But hopefully, we get some interesting stories that people have wanted to tell but haven't been able to tell because they weren't at EA or one of the studios who partnered with EA.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a flood. I don't think a flood is a problem. People flood the video game market constantly, and it's never a problem. It's about how much money you're willing to spend on any given game. And it was clear that Lucas Arts was not willing to spend a lot of money on some of the games near the tail end of that life cycle. And also, Disney didn't own them. It was a totally different landscape.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally forgot to mention that what this indicates is, yes, EA has exclusive publishing rights until 2023, and it does not look like that relationship will be continuing. No word on, of course, EA's future involvement, but presumably they'll still be creating and publishing the kinds of games that they've been publishing, like Battlefront 3 eventually will come out, and maybe more, what was it? Not Rogue Squadron. What was it? What's that new Squadrons game? They'll probably, iterate on that in the future.
Hopefully Squadrons 2, the Wedge Antilles adventure.
Mm-hmm. So I've already see people making the same mistake again and getting way too hyped up about a game that doesn't exist yet in this Ubisoft open world Star Wars game. Are you guys excited for such a thing, knowing Ubisoft's, the kind of games they make, their style, and, open world Star Wars game that we've seen so far, pseudo open world in Fallen Order? Are you tentative? Is it exciting, etc.?
So I played Division. I didn't play Division 2. Just it was more in the dent that I had kind of moved on from those type of games for a little while. But I really like the Division. I think when it comes to compared to the Assassin's Creeds or what in particular, and some of the more like Ubisoft sandbox open world games where it's just full of check marks, it was a bit more of a focused experience a lot of times. And its mechanics actually to me were well done, and whereas Assassin's Creed really has spent. Basically had to reinvent itself because everyone kind of admitted that its combat and all that was never all that great. So I think Massive is a pretty good studio. Honestly, if you took the Division and swapped out the guns for blasters and tweaked the abilities, you got a game that could very easily look like a Rebel Alliance as trying to fight the Empire within a city type of game,
or Far Cry for that matter.
Yeah, but Massive doesn't do Far Cry, I guess, is where I was coming from.
But I guess that's what I'm getting at is, for me, across the board, I would say Ubisoft does, for me personally, a better job at shooters than they do in that, be a third person for the Division or first person for Far Cry, but they do a better job at shooters than they do for third person combat, like action adventure. And I know a lot of people really do enjoy the Assassin's Creed games, but they're not really my cup of tea.
So I think there's potential there to get a kind of like a gritty, almost like kind of what we saw of the Star Wars universe in like Rogue One type of game. But also, like you said, Karch, it's at a minimum 2 years out because it's not going to be able to come out until after 2023, which means and it's probably fairly early in its development. So I 100% agree. Do I think we could have a good game here? Yeah, but I'm excited for a new Star Wars game than thinking that this is going to be some grand game. Like there's no indicator for that yet.
Yeah. See,
I think
sorry, go ahead.
People are just excited about the fact that EA has it's indicated and implied that EA will no longer have exclusive publishing rights. I think more than anything, that's what people are excited about.
That was exciting. Until then they announced Ubisoft was like the first major partner. I was like, okay, well, that's got me rolling my eyes.
Yeah, no, I understand. But if they could get the type of quality control that they have on the Marvel games, we'll be in good shape. And I have seen some commentary that like, oh, that didn't work out too well for Marvel. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because people love the Spider-Man game. People like Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
I haven't seen anybody say that.
I saw like a couple people say it, and obviously this is probably the more critical Reddit bunch.
Right. You mean Marvel Ultimate Alliance or Marvel Avengers?
No, just the idea of Marvel and the way they've handled their games.
No, specifically the Switch. What was that one? Was
that's
Ultimate
Alliance
on the
3.
Switch?
Oh, specifically that game?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a weird comparison.
No, it's not a comparison. It's the error of... It's the era of Marvel games where Disney owns the IP, and the comparison between the Star Wars games versus the Marvel games, and how they've handled that. The Marvel games is, okay, let's put it out there. These IPs open. This studio can have this. This studio can have this. Okay, so Insomniac's can have Spider-Man and whatever. Team Ninja. I don't know who did that Marvel Ultimate Alliance game. But at any rate, that's my point, is they have a totally different approach with the Marvel games, and I think it's become a better product as a result. And
so, question
with Star
though,
Wars, it's just been...
Does Disney have control over Spider-Man? Because Spider-Man's, at least movie rights, are owned by Sony. In the video games,
it's literally only the movie rights.
Is it? Okay. Mm-hmm. I was just asking because, obviously the Spider-Man games are only on PlayStation.
Yeah, that could be some backdoor shady deals, but there's no confirmation as to how and why that happened exactly. It's just the way that it shook out.
Okay. My point is pound for pound, Marvel video games have had more praise than Star Wars games.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%.
So
I think that the Switch game did really well for what it was. Like it was a smaller scope project with a smaller budget and smaller profit goals, etc. But I think it performed exactly the way they wanted it to.
Right.
And anybody
we
who
haven't
says
talked about the Marvel's Avengers game though.
No, that was a big stinker. Yeah, it was a big stinker.
So I think the fact that like Marvel games under Disney have done really well is only valid because of the Spider-Man games.
Possibly.
No, I'd say overall. The funny thing is the EA situation might still be more profitable overall because Star Wars just has that ability. Like Battlefront 2 had the worst, like the highest downvoted Reddit comment of all time, but it didn't stop people from playing and buying that game. Like they turned it around. Like everyone's like, "That's great."
The last two EA Star Wars game entries have been fairly good. Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order was largely well received.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Squadrons didn't make a big splash, but as far as everyone's opinion of the game, people like the game.
Yeah, people who like flight sims,
that type of game.
And they very much enjoyed it, and I'm sure it brought in people who don't like that kind of game or had never tried it before. So it's again an overall and a success. But I think that I don't know.
I think my point is just that I personally like the open approach more than the
Me too.
EA. Here you go. Yeah. You've got it all. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so we'll see how it shakes out. I'm hoping it's beneficial for consumers.
I'm just worried I don't want to play Star Wars games anymore. Anyway, moving on. Mario 3D World and plus, I don't know how you say it, plus Bowser's Fury got a trailer. They got two trailers. So they announced this thing the night before, and they're like, check this trailer out. And it was literally 2 minutes at 9 a.m. Eastern. So there's some poor saps over on the Pacific Coast who wake up to, review these things live with their audience. Were sleepy and disappointed, I'm sure, for that short of a thing. That could have been
our opportunity, and we missed it.
Exactly. Thankfully, they did say it was only 2 minutes long. So we'll start with this. And it's a very brief showcase of Mario running around this gigantic lake-looking thing, and it's an open world a la Odyssey, and he's running around with Baby Bowser, and he's hopping around, and the gameplay looks very different from 3D World, although there's a lot of similarities and familiar-looking things. There's that dinosaur thing that you ride, and there's the cat suit, of course. And then Bowser comes out of his gigantic shell, and he's called Fury Bowser, and he just looks like a giant kaiju, but like we've never seen before. So not quite Giga Bowser from Smash Bros, but basically Giga Bowser. And he's breathing fire and blah, blah, blah. And then Mario rings this giant bell, and he turns to his Super Saiyan giant cat. End trailer.
Super Nyan cat.
Super Nyan cat. Thankfully, we got a 7-minute overview the next day. Why they didn't put these together, I have absolutely no idea. Why?
It's Nintendo a weird week for news timing.
It was. Nintendo is going hard in the exact opposite direction of what they've been doing the last few years.
They're missing Reggie.
His direction is so sorely missed, apparently. It must be the real Bowser, and he's destroying Nintendo from the inside. Because they've gotten rid of the proper direct, it seems. A lot of people are wondering if we're ever going to see just a regular Nintendo Direct again, and instead of all these partner directs and indie directs and single game or themed events. Anyway, we got a longer thing, and it's basically an Odyssey level. It's an Odyssey world at this cat lake thing, and you collect cat shines instead of stars or moons or sun sprites or whatever. And it looks fun, but it looks really short. And so I would caution anybody who has played this game before, do not buy this game for just that. It doesn't look worth it to me to buy a $60 game for probably 2 to 3 hours of content at the most. It looks fun, it looks silly, but it doesn't look worth just buying for this. Comes out February 12th. It's going to have online co-op, which the other one didn't have. It's going to have photo mode, so you can use those stickers that you collect throughout the levels and put them on the thing. Everybody loves photo mode these days. The characters do move faster. I'll be talking about it later in my What You've Been Playing because I play in the original, but the characters are kind of slow in that, and it's clear that they upped the speed up a bit here. And yeah, so Jason, you just watched the trailer, nice and fresh. What do you think of Bowser's Fury?
I don't know. This type of thing never really strikes me. It's weird because I'm a big Nintendo fan, but for whatever reason, these things never really resonate with me.
What are these things? Explain.
I never get as hyped as like the hardcore Nintendo fan base seems to get for this. But then I'll buy the thing and I'll enjoy my time with it or whatever. So for this particular one, like I beat this game on Wii U. And this little Bowser's Fury edition doesn't really strike me as, like you said, as something that's worth $60. Now, I am excited for it for a different reason, because I think I am going to buy this game to play with my 4-year-old who's getting into games, and my wife who, like, is seeing him get into games and, like, thinking, oh, it would be cool to play something with him, and she has mentioned maybe wanting to play this. So, like, that's worth $60 to me, that experience. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not any more hyped. That like if they would have just told me, well, it's a Super Mario 3D World remake, that I would be just excited as knowing that the Bowser's Fury thing comes with it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a weirdo. I don't know. I'm not like super stoked. I kind of. In some ways, I wish that this just had come with the Super Mario 35th anniversary pack that they forced me to buy for $60. That included Super Mario 64, Galaxy, and Sunshine. Yeah. So I kind of wish that it just had come with that. I don't really quite understand. I guess they just see it as another thing they can make another $60 for, but...
Yep. Sean, would you consider buying this if, assuming Jason's going to get it, so we'll have access to it, but if he wasn't, would you consider getting it? Did you play the original?
I didn't play the original. I've only ever actually played, because the original is kind of that... Give me a second here. My backlight just went out. But there we go. But they're all... they're 2.5D, right? Like they tend to be... There's not like the free running like you would get in Odyssey, right? So I mean, like I've played them and I'll have fun playing them, but I've never gone on my way to go get one and play it. And that's probably the case here. Like that's honestly my biggest confusion here is it does. It seems like it's more of like an Odyssey DLC, and I'm curious if the only reason it didn't become an Odyssey DLC was they decided they wanted something to help sell this re-release of 3D World.
Yeah, probably.
And that, maybe that's I'm just too cynical. I don't know.
No, I mean you're right. They needed something, and they didn't come out with any DLC for Odyssey, which is just not any. They did that Luigi balloon time trial hide and seek thing, and then costumes. That was it. But never any more worlds, which it would have been prime to do. Right. Even for paid or whatever. But and no rumors, no whispers of an Odyssey 2 or the next Mario, which I still find very strange. No one talks about that either. But well, I guess. I've never known you to be a huge Mario fan. Like, how much do you like Mario? Scale of 1 to 10.
6.
6. All right, that's lower than I would have, thought. Well, lower than I would have put too.
Like, so. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I played Odyssey. I think I'm like 2/3 of the way through Odyssey. It's one of those games every so often I'm like, I should go Odyssey, and I'll beat a world or two, and then I'll get distracted with another game and go play another game and come back to it. But the last Mario game. Oh, let me think here. The last Mario game I actually beat, because I never beat Mario 64, would have been Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo, which I loved Yoshi Island on the Super Nintendo.
That's hilarious. I didn't know you were that far removed from the series. Yeah. That's interesting. Cool.
Yeah, no, man, I probably play more Mario games in the form of his spin-offs, the Mario Kart and the Mario Tennis than I play baseline Mario games. I did beat Super Mario RPG, even though that nearly probably killed me trying to beat that game. But
greatest Mario game of all time.
I love that game.
So it's good. Not.
Shut up. What's the greatest Mario game of all time? No,
it's Super Mario.
I like
Super
Mario.
World, and I just don't play Mario. Debate.
Jason, what were you saying?
Super Mario World, and it's not up for debate.
No, you're right. It's not. That is the best 100%. Mario game.
And I have beaten Super Mario World.
Thank God.
Like my Mario game. Pretty much peaked on the Super Nintendo, and I haven't really been all that dedicated to getting back to Mario since.
You were the only person that I know, personally, who ever had Mario Paint. So, and the mouse Paint. And everything. Good times.
Yep. Wow.
Fly swatter.
I don't know what you mean, but moving on to the quick cap.
Had that little fly swatting game.
I never played it. I just knew you had it. So
okay.
I knew the only thing I know about Mario Paint, having not played it, is it had that music editor that people then they hacked it in the ROM so that they could do even more with it because it was still kind of limited in the actual base game. But anyway, on to the quick cap. Just a few more fun little stories. Mario, continuing the Mario conversation, they're finally putting out a Mario themed Switch, which is to say it's just a red Switch. Joy-Cons, the base of the Switch.
I think one of the Joy-Cons is like Mario coveralls blue as well.
No, it's the grip that you put it in.
Is that what it is? Okay.
They're both red, yeah. And so you get this really, really red-looking Switch, which I dig, but I can see why people wouldn't. And the Mario overalls are actually kind of, even though they are the correct color, it seems like they clash. Like, it's just this weird splash of this really bright light blue. Very strange timing, very strange, design, in my opinion. Did you have
the
a
dock
chance?
Is red, too.
Exactly. So everything is red except that Joy-Con grip. Yeah, which a lot of people don't like or use. Yeah, it's kind of ugly, but in a way, I love the Mario Red. I wanted I had a Wii, obviously, but when that 25th anniversary one came out, I was like, I need that because it's red, and Mario is red, and I like Mario. I had a smooth brain moment when it came out. Hades' Spanish translation is hot garbage, according to the Spanish-speaking community. So if anyone thinks that we're Hades fanboys, there's some bad news for Hades for you. Apparently they used, in conjunction with, of course, professional translators, they outsourced a lot of it to fans during their early access, who then would just use crappy Google Translate. And so a lot of it is incredibly jarring or poorly or incorrectly translated.
Is the voice acting in Spanish as well, or...
That is a good question. I don't know. I didn't do a lot of in-depth on this one, but presumably, but maybe not.
That would be kind of funny if native Spanish speakers were reading a Google Translate and then didn't say anything.
Yeah, I don't know how you get that. I don't know how, you just get a bunch of really eager English-only speaking people who are like, yeah, we'll help, we want to help you, and then that's it. I feel like you should only reach out. Although if you don't speak both, and that's hard to find, and then that's hence the outsourcing. Anyway.
Okay.
U.S. Environmental Agency warns against Xbox Series X and PS5 energy consumption, according to GameIndustry.biz. I just thought that was funny that we're all going to be looking for put these consoles in our home, and they're gobbling up as much as a standard 4K TV. I don't know exact size.
It was more than a 60-inch 4K TV. Mm-hmm. And then the big thing they hit him on was the fact that it defaults to the instant startup setting, which basically means at all times it's pulling down that amount. Whereas because there's apparently the Xbox One, if I recall, has a quick startup and it has basically a full shutdown. I don't know if instant startup is the same, because what they said was the instant startup, basically your console's always running, it's always going to draw that full load. And then it said, it had either another setting, or I guess maybe if it was just plugged in but shut down, it would pull it would pull 1% of that, much less, and was much more reasonable. And then the other thing they knocked them on was basically these companies, this environmental agency, was saying that if you're going to stream video, your Amazon Fire Sticks and your Rokus and whatnot draw much more energy. And apparently they've been advocating the video game companies to install essentially one of those devices almost inside, another chip just for streaming, so that it doesn't draw as much or consume as much power while you're just streaming.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I just thought it'd be funny, or I thought it was fun that we were, I botched that sentence. Sony and Microsoft, why do you hate the environment so much? And why do we hate the environment so much since we want these consoles in our home?
Microsoft is committed to being carbon neutral in 10, 15 years, something like that.
Microsoft will be. It's not their fault that we're putting these devices in our home.
They'll just outsource it to their consumers.
Jason, does this make you think twice about your 3080?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And I think the U.S. Environmental Agency, and I assume that's the EPA, should maybe worry about some more important things.
Agreed.
Because I know that we deregulated a lot of things that Fortune 500 companies do, especially manufacturers. And oh gosh, I don't want to go off on a
please
tangent.
Please do.
But like, it drives me crazy, this idea that, like, obviously we all have a personal responsibility to do what we can do to protect the environment. But if you look at this truly on the scale of like who actually pollutes, an individual's carbon footprint is so much smaller than a company's carbon footprint. And this is coming from a guy who pays $40 a month to compost. And I'm about to sign up for a really cool, and we're not sponsored, and I don't even know the name of the company, but I heard about it on another podcast. You can actually link your energy account to this particular service, and they will measure your energy output or intake or consumption, and they will buy carbon neutral offsets for you. It's $5 a month, so it's pretty cool deal. So between the carbon offset, like the alternative green energy offset for that, and the composting and the recycling, like, I consider myself to be a pretty environmentally conscious person. This type of thing irks me so much. It is so disingenuous to think that somebody that has one of these plugged in is anywhere near the level of polluter of Foxconn, who manufactures these. Like, give me a freaking break. Not to mention, like, the impact on humanity from likely using slave labor from internment camps for Muslims that they probably sent to Foxconn to make these things. Like, give me a break that plug in this thing. And I could talk about this all day. This might be my gaming gripe of the week, but like, couple things.
It was not the EPA; it was the U.S. Natural Resource Defense Council, which I've never heard of.
They can suck it too.
They can suck it.
I did get a kick out of the fact that they did applaud the Series S for drawing significantly less power, which makes sense. It's not a 4K box.
An OLED TV already draws, like, compared to a tube set, like, it's not that much power.
Right. This sounds like a PETA's sort of situation where they're making a mountain out of a molehill.
I'll be honest. For all I know, the U.S. National Resource Defense Council may not be part of the U.S. government. It may be its own little, nonprofit advocacy group, similar to PETA or Greenpeace or whatnot. I really have no idea.
Suck it.
And then I wish I lived in a place that recycled and composted and did that. There is no recycling options in Panama City, and I hate it. They burn all of our trash, even the plastic.
That's bad.
Yeah. Between that and the paper plant and the chemical plant, I'm definitely going to get, it's really just stacking on all the other things the military has ensured that I'm going to get cancer from down the road. So
they're not a .gov. So
it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this podcast, but it actually is pretty cool, this composting program. So if you live in Huntsville, cough, cough, Josh, there is a local farm that actually puts this program out. And I misspoke. It's not $40 a month. It's $35 a month. But every week that you participate in composting, they give you a little composting bin that pick it up every week. Every week that you participate, they give you $10 in credit for this farm. And so if you want to order fresh eggs, fresh meat, produce, etc., you get credit. You go online and you pick the items you want to order from this farm with your $10 a week credit, and then you can bank it. It rolls over. And then they will deliver it to you on your doorstep when they pick up your compost. So you're actually making money because you're paying $35 a month, but you're making $10 a month in farm credit. And then they in turn take that compost and they will use what they need for their farm. And then they will I don't know if they donate or sell the rest of that compost to other, but it's essentially the whole idea of it is we're making healthy soil. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
I don't know,
You're
man.
welcome.
It sounds a lot like an addiction. They're paying you to compost, really?
Yeah, they're paying me. They're actually paying me.
I think we need to do an intervention here about your composting. It's getting a little out of hand.
I will throw away my toilet paper in the compost and you will like it. And I'm just kidding. They do not take human or animal feces.
Perfect. All right, you heard it here, folks. First, folks, don't put your poopy toilet paper in your compost. All right, moving on from the rest of the quick caps. Hopefully this one doesn't spiral out of control, but it might. New Pokemon Snap releasing April 30th. We got a release date and a very small but tasteful trailer. Again, who knows? Tomorrow we might get a longer trailer considering
a small but tasteful trailer sounds like you are describing something erotic.
The Pokemon got naked, man. They bore all. They didn't have any clothes on, as is not normal for Pokemon. But yeah, just in time for Sean's dad's birthday, I'm going to go ahead and get him a copy since he loves Pokemon Snap so much. He's a big fan from back in the day. Do you guys... All right, so yeah, screw the quick cap. I want to get into this. Am I being... I mean, I want a bunch of kids out there who've never played Pokemon Snap because they probably had zero opportunity to do so to discover the magic that is, wow, I love Pokemon and now I'm taking pictures of them. What a ridiculously but amazing concept. But I'm kind of I don't want anyone over the age of let's say 13. We'll cut it off there to enjoy this game. Does that sound crazy to you? Am I just being a humbug here?
Why do you not want anyone over the age of 13 to enjoy it?
Because I honestly think this game just shouldn't exist. Because what has Nintendo been doing this entire time? What has the Game Freak been doing this entire time that they're only just now finally coming back to the Pokemon Snap well? And I can't help but feel like it's all the 30 and 35-year-olds out there. Remember Pokemon Snap? They should do that again. Oh, we love it. It's great. We're going to meme it for a week and then drop it like bug snacks. And I don't know. It's just rubbing me the wrong way. There's just something in my gut that's this is... I don't know.
I gotta tell you, man, Pokemon Snap's always rubbed me the wrong way, and I've always thought it was dumb. Always.
Really?
Always.
Okay.
I remember playing the demo for this in a Target in 1990, whatever, and just thinking, this is the dumbest game in existence. This is like being on the most boring Disney ride of all time. It's a small world after all, except for you get to take a picture. It's like that stupid Chuck E. Cheese ride where you pay $1 to get your picture taken next to a plastic rat. That is exactly what this feels like. And I hated it always, and I hate it now. And I won't be sorry.
Hot take. Even hotter than mine, I think. But yeah, just one more thing. I think you can enjoy regular Pokemon as an adult. There is something to it there. There's good creature design. The gameplay can be simplistic, but it can be very fun and rewarding, and it can be difficult if you play at a player versus player level. You do competitive Pokemon. It's hard. There's stats. There's strategies, etc. Pokemon Snap is kind of a game for babies, and I'm not saying you can't enjoy a game for babies, but again, there's just something about I can see all the people that I follow that they're gonna do their streams and their impressions and their hot takes on Pokemon Snap.
We're not gonna do it.
No, we're not, because I am not paying $60 for, even if they triple the time it took you to beat the original, we're still talking about a game that only takes 6 hours to play, basically. So, Sean, how do you feel about Pokemon Snap?
And you better not like it.
I mean, I think if people are excited for it, good for them. My biggest recollection of when the original Pokemon Snap came out, my controversy was, you have finally made a game with Pokemon who are 3D in it. Why didn't you give me an actual Pokemon game in 3D? Which is literally what everyone has been demanding until it finally, basically a console Pokemon game until it finally came out on the Switch. But you're probably right. There might be a bit of nostalgia there, but a thing I remember reading a thing a while back, and it was actually about Nintendo. And really, this is Game Freak, but not necessarily Nintendo. Is all of kind of the second tier Nintendo games that aren't either its major franchises or some of the games that have become kind of major things, like the Mario Karts of the world. or of the company are all developed by younger developers. It's how they actually get their younger programmers and all their employees to gain experience. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe Game Freak has realized they need to put a little bit of work in developing their people, and they gave them an opportunity to go off and make a game that was, admittedly might be fairly simple, but that's what they're doing.
That is an excellent point. That I know that has been a strategy of theirs in the past, or Japanese developers in general. Obviously, it didn't occur to me that it could be that, but yeah.
And then I know people who like they love Pokemon, but like they're also like they don't handle the stress of like as minimal as the stress of playing Pokemon is. They're just those people who can't handle like the fighting and all that in a game. So this is a way for them to actually enjoy Pokemon with minimum stress. So do I plan on playing it? No. I played the original Pokemon Snap. It wasn't something that I was head over heels with. But if people want to play the game, cool. I'm happy people have a game that hopefully they'll be able to enjoy.
Yep. Now I'll eat my words. I have no problem admitting I'm wrong if it comes out like, hey, yes, I will. Yes, I will.
No, you won't, because it won't be good.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's a different story. But like, if they manage to like put some oomph into this game, and you know what? Joke's on me, because I might just buy this on a whim. But like, hey, Juliet, for my daughter specifically, I already said it's fine. Okay if kids play this.
That's fine,
because like then they can experience the magic. Of course, Jason had a very different experience than I did. Because I loved this game. My sister and I loved this game.
And going back to either the first time when I was on, or one of the questions I asked last year, how's this going to work if you can't go to a Blockbuster to print out your pictures?
That was
a really good point.
It doesn't. Put it in the trash.
Live correction. Pokemon Stadium was released August 1st, 1998. And Pokemon Snap was March 21st, 1999. So technically we did have a 3D Pokemon game on the N64.
But no, Stadium is not a mainline Pokemon game.
But neither is Snap.
But it was cool that you could like import
But like the point being, between those two games, there are two games on the Nintendo 64 that have 3D Pokemon in them, but we could so very clearly they could make Pokemon in a 3D or on the 64.
Do you remember the?
But they didn't give us a main Pokemon game, which was always the frustration.
Do you remember the attachment where you could put your Game Boy cartridge into it and play Pokemon through Pokemon Stadium on your TV?
You could not play Pokemon through Pokemon Stadium. You could import your Pokemon from your game into Pokemon Stadium.
You could play Pokemon on the TV.
You're talking about that was a different attachment. That's the Game Boy player.
Oh, okay.
That's the Game Boy player on the Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo, and then GameCube had a similar
GameCube had one that also played GBA games.
Are you sure that there wasn't one for Nintendo 64? Because
I think there was. The 64 had a pack where you could plug in your Pokemon game, and then it would import the Pokemon that you could fight with the same stats. The Pokemon, those Pokemon with the same stats, but you couldn't play the actual game.
Corrections next week, because I think you could play the Game Boy game on the N64.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
I hope Sean's dad likes it. We've got a book. A Nintendo book called Ask Iwata, Book of the Departed Nintendo President's Wisdom and Stories of His Interactions with Others in the Gaming Industry. I'll never read it. I don't know if you guys will. I know Jason won't. But it sounds nice and sweet and heartwarming.
I might get it. Apparently, it came out in Japan, I think last year, maybe even late 2019. And it was very well received. So they've translated it, and it's going to come to the U.S. now. So I don't know. I may look into it again. I'm sure it would be kind of an interesting insight to this company that I've been playing the games they've made for years, but I've never really dug into the things that have happened at the company itself. Which isn't a big shocker. Japanese companies tend to be a little bit not willing to show that stuff.
Right. And then lastly, we have recent crackdowns on game hackers. So for instance, Niantic had a $5 million settlement apparently against some hacking group.
It was a company that was basically selling. It was hacked versions of Pokemon Go, the Harry Potter one, and then what's the original one they made?
Oh, starts with an I. Ingress.
Yeah. Ingress. So it allowed you to like spoof GPS. It allowed you to spoof movement, so so that you were able to to get your steps in and the benefits that brought you. And so they have now they took them to court. They settled out of court for $5 million, and that company will now be settling, will be shutting down, and will not be allowed to interact with Niantic's software. And then similarly, Bungie and Riot are working together, and they're going after several websites / companies that sell things like aim bots and the ability to see through walls and build a teleport and invulnerability for Bungie and Riot's game Destiny 2 and Valorant that have apparently really stepped up as a problem. I know for Destiny 2 it really kicked up when Destiny brought back what's called, I think it's Trials of Osiris in Destiny 1. I think it's Trials of the Nine in Destiny 2, but that's like their hyper competitive multiplayer mode, more so than just the normal Crucible. So they are cracking down. So there's a current push. Not that I ever think these companies can win this fight, but there is a push right now to bring some of these companies to court and try to put them down.
Good for them. Yeah. Get out of here, hackers. You suck. Unless it's Diablo 2 and it's us hacking stuff. But no, it's bad. And it ruins people's times. All right, that was the news. Now for a little segment I like to call God of War Watch 2021. Sound designer for The Last of Us 2 and Uncharted Legacy joins PlayStation team, starting work on God of War Ragnarok, and their name is Bo Anthony Jimenez. I'm going to say Jimenez. It could be Jimenez, but it probably isn't. Anyway, that's literally all I have. I'm going to start talking about anything related to God of War, and I'm going to be that guy. Yeah.
I think, personally, you should cut that 30 seconds out and upload it as a separate video to a separate channel.
No, not a separate channel. Someone else's channel.
That'll instantly get more subscribers in this channel.
Exactly.
All right, we here at Never Free to Play are never free to play, and sometimes we like to just talk about the video games we wish we were playing. So, Jason, what do you wish you were playing?
You've stumbled on Jason's gaming gripe of the week.
I love this. This is the new thing.
I would like to go for a true daily double.
Ken.
For this week, it's a gaming gripe of the week / what you wish we were playing. Anything on an RTX card. I've tried so hard these past few weeks to get my hands on an RTX card. And we do have a local parts store called Gigaparts. And they said, follow us on Facebook. We will post when we have RTX cards in stock. We're supposed to get them on stock soon. So I was like, okay, cool. Followed them on Facebook. I was sitting at work. I was on a call. And I was kind of like, it was a call where you have to be on it, but it's just you're listening for your name. It's not a big deal, So I'm sitting there scrolling through Facebook during the call, and I see a black box with green graphics and white lettering, and I'm like, holy cow. Like my brain processed it before I really knew internally what it was, but I was like, that's an RTX card. And I immediately texted Tyler, and I was like, dude, local store has RTX cards. What do I do? He's like, leave right now. And I was like, I'm on a call. He's like, take it on your phone and drive. And I was like, you're a genius. And I freaking, because I was on my laptop taking the call, but then I called into the meeting, put my AirPods in, and just left work. Like at middle of the day, I just left work. I was like, I will make this up after I get home. I have to get this RTX card. I drive down to the local parts store. I'm super stoked. I get there. I go, do you guys have any RTX cards? And they say, yeah, we do. And I'm like, yes, let me buy one. And they go, okay, cool, but you have to buy it with a bundle. Ooh. And I was like, well, what's the bundle? And they were like, oh, it's really anything you want to make it. I'm like, okay, give me an example. And they were like, oh, well, like this power supply, for instance, we recommend you have at least 750 watts with the graphics card. Oh, and by the way, they only had 3070s. They didn't have 3080s. And I want a 3080. But I was like, okay, wait, whatever. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy the 3070. Fine. Whatever. I'm settling. Give me that power supply. And they were like, okay, cool. What else are you going to buy? And I was like, you just told me the power supply was the bundle. And they're like, oh yeah, but you have to buy two things. And I was like, well, what else? And they're like, well, we have this and this and this and this and this. And anyway, I went through all the things I could possibly upgrade with my build. And really, I don't need much that I'm willing to buy right this second because they didn't have the AMD 5000 series Ryzen cards, which is another thing that I wanted, but they don't have those in stock. I was like, well, I need a new Wi-Fi access point for like a Ubiquiti Unify access point for my house. Oh, they didn't have that in stock. So I was like, okay, fine, give me a hard drive. So I got a hard drive. I basically, they made me buy $300 of extra stuff. And the guy was like, I'm going to level with you. You know, we can't really afford to sell these cards at MSRP if we're not selling it with other components. I'm like, well, just charge more for the card. I want to charge me $50 more for the card. I don't want to buy $300 extra of components. But I did it, and I brought it home, and it didn't sit well with me. I did not take it out of the shrink wrap. I did not install it in my computer, and I subsequently returned it the next day.
I want to describe the look on their face. Explain to me how they looked when you came back in with your probably almost $1,000 worth of equipment.
No. It was over $1,000 worth of equipment.
Over $1,000 equipment.
Yeah. They didn't want to let me return it. Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't.
Yeah. They were like, sir, you can't return this. And I was like, excuse me? And they were like, yeah, this is listed on our website as non-refundable. And I was like, well, I didn't buy it on your website. I bought it at this store. And I asked Anthony if I could return it. And he said, as long as it was not in the shrink wrap, there'd be no restocking fee. And they were like, oh, no, we're going to have to ask the owner. And anyway, they asked the owner, and he was like, yeah, it's fine. It's in the shrink wrap. It's fine. And it did not say that it was non-refundable on the receipt either. Gigaparts in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm calling you out. I'm never buying anything from there again.
I'm tweeting at them right now.
You tweet at those people.
At Gigaparts.
There's one store in Las Vegas and there's one store in Huntsville, and I guarantee they both suck.
Nice.
And you know what? Joshua from Gigaparts, 4K OLED monitors with 120 hertz refresh rates are not $3,000. They're $700. Calm yourself down, sir. I hope you hear this.
I wonder if the reason, just going back to what you said about them saying they can't afford to sell it at MSRP has anything to do with those tariffs that kicked in at the start of the year.
100%. But they were selling it at the MSRP inflated price. So the 3070 MSRP originally for the Founders Edition was $500. This was an MSI card, meaning that it was overclocked and it had modified cooler on it. And typically what manufacturers will do is, like, NVIDIA has the Founders Edition, which is the plain Jane basic version. But then MSI, Zotac, Asus, all EVGA, they all make their own little version of the card where they overclock it and add a special cooler on it, like an additional fan or whatever, or they make it cool looking, or they have like a white casing or whatever. And then they will charge more than what the Founders Edition MSRP is. My point being, this MSI card was $650, which obviously implies that it did take into account the however much percentage tariff that
it's like
I think it's
25-50% is what I've been reading.
Yeah. So that's what it does include, that inflated price. It's happening right now. You can't find any of those RTX cards for what the advertised MSRP of 2019 or 2020 was.
Well, and then supply and demand is still not in your favor.
Absolutely. And
yeah, I mean, that's this story is just simply, a physical retailer who had an opopportunity to upsell a bunch of other stuff because they had the advantage here. And jokes on them because they have a return policy.
Yep. Well, they pretended they didn't, but they did ultimately.
But that's not a game. What would you play? You plug your 3080 in. It's running smooth and quiet and cool right now. It's RGB colors glowing faintly against your wall. What's the first game you start up or buy? What do you do?
Honestly, I'd probably do. If you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I would have told you Cyberpunk.
Well, duh.
Yeah, but today, I would probably go find a way to play Control, because that is a game that I know people say.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it handles DLSS 2.0 very well, and that's the AI rendering, which makes your frames per second better. And then secondly, the RTX is supposed to be very good on it. And so I think that game is the game that you'd want to play to experience, what does this feature set gain me?
Wrong answer. You actually meant Skyrim Special Edition with all the mods.
No, yeah, you're right.
Yes,
you're right.
That is what you meant.
I'm sorry, Sean took control of my body there for a moment.
Okay, I talked for a very long time. Karcher, Sean, what do you wish you were playing?
I'll go quick because I don't have an answer. I just haven't been playing much of anything, and what I am playing, I'm pretty content with. I don't have a lot of stuff I wish I was playing. I think I've just kind of shut down mentally. Like I can't think about new games or too many games. I've already decided I'm going to play all of Kingdom Hearts this year, and I'm kind of planning out that. Once I'm done with one, I'll probably move on to Automata. I'm excited to play it, but I'm not there yet, so I'm not wishing for it at the moment. So, Sean, what about you?
This was a bad gaming week for me. I think I was only free to play for like 2-3 hours this week.
But what do you wish you were playing?
Yeah, I'm getting to it. So there are a lot of things I wish I was playing. I got through that one very simplistic tutorial on Monster Hunter Rise, so I'd like to go play more of that. I still want to play more of Age of Calamity with my wife. We just with work's been going on and our schedules, that hasn't worked out. I still want to load up Star Wars Squadrons because I'm sure I'm going to love playing that game or once I get into it, but I just haven't had time. And then we talked last week that I still need to go back and beat KOTOR, and I agree with Karsh from last week. I want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I gotta get that downloaded and start playing it. This week I've had no time to play, so I would happily play probably anything at this point.
That reminds
just to be
me.
able to relax.
I do want to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. That did pop into my head because I listened to a spoiler cast for Sacred Symbols. Finally, they got around to it, and I was like, man, but I will wait. I'll wait until Sean plays it so we can play it together and maybe do something. No commitments here on either of our ends, but like it'll be fun to play the same game at the same time.
Yeah.
So
if you guys do that, you can redo our spoiler
I just
cast.
need time to play right now. I have no time right now, and then work is just has just been crazy this week. Will likely be crazy in the next couple of weeks, depending on how things go. Hopefully, if nothing else, I'll try to take a few days off around my birthday next month and maybe get some gaming in. But I do have a 3-day weekend because this weekend's MLK Day, so hopefully I'll get some time to play this weekend.
Cool. What were you saying, Jason?
Oh, I said that if Sean if Sean ends up playing Final Fantasy VII Remake and you end up replaying with him, you can re-record the spoiler cast without me.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
I mean, I'll probably be on the call just because I like to interject, but
if you're on the call, you'll talk too, and then you'll be on the spoiler cast.
Yeah.
I mean, you're more than welcome to join us.
I'll talk about that first 2 hours, man. I played that.
Oh, no, not even.
What was the demo section? Like
you
an
could
hour?
actually play it with us. How about that?
Oh, don't stress me out.
Stress you? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You know what I bet would be a simple, stress-free game? Pokemon Snap.
No.
Pokemon Snap. Woo! Feel good.
Oh, okay.
Feel good.
I thought you were going to tell me Stardew Valley.
Oh, you should do that too.
No, I can't plant anything.
We'll do split screen co-op.
Maybe you need
or not even. We can do online co-op right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. You can do up to 4 players. The 3 of us could play.
What?
Good.
I would do that. I would buy it on Steam to do that.
You can't do it. I don't know if it has crossplay. Sean doesn't have it on Steam.
Correct.
Oh, well.
But if you can, then it doesn't matter.
Anyway. No, see, that's a game where it's $10 and I know his Surface laptop would run that.
Right, but maybe he doesn't want to buy it a second time like a crazy person like I do.
It doesn't matter what he wants. It's for the podcast.
It's not for the podcast. We wouldn't be able to record it. Oh, wait, no, if it's on Steam, we would. Never mind. All right. I've been playing some stuff. I mentioned Felseal last week. I played a lot more like just after we recorded. Haven't played much at all this week. I'm going to go into a little deep dive, though, explain this game, give my impressions on it, maybe break this video out. So, as I mentioned last week, Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is a turn-based, grid-based strategy RPG. That is that's what they're called. And there's not necessarily a lot of strategy to it, like some other actual strategy games. But anyway, I digress. It is basically a job-based RPG a la Final Fantasy Tactics. So if you've ever played a game like that, I'm trying to think of another one similar to it. It is similar to Fire Emblem, but does not play exactly the same. It's really good. Basically, you have a group of anywhere between 5 and 7 people. They all have a job or class that has a certain number of abilities. If they've learned enough abilities from a secondary class, they can equip those as well. You'll have passives, which are passive abilities. Reactionary abilities, which something happens when somebody does something to you.
I always viewed these games as, imagine like the old school like Final Fantasy 7, like options in combat, except you also have to move your character around on a grid.
Yeah, basically, exactly. It's
and then you add in the class system too, but really it's whereas like a Fire Emblem, it's your option is attack. Yeah, if you have a spellcaster, they may have a couple different types of spells based on what books. But this game, it's like there's that same breadth of options that you would get, and say if you were playing Final Fantasy VII, for your options on how to attack your enemies. But also you have to manage the grid, the moving your characters your characters around aspect of the game as well, which is really where the tactics kind of comes from.
Right. So yeah, exactly. It's like a blown out turn-based RPG. So you got a bunch of people on the map, and then that one area. How it differs from games like it, not too many ways. You've got your base jobs at the beginning. Jobs are unlocked via learning abilities in other jobs. So let's say I've got a soldier class, and then I learn 4 abilities as a soldier. Now I've unlocked Knight. I can go into Knight, and then I can learn some abilities there, and I've unlocked Templar. But if I've also learned like 4 wizard abilities, I unlock another class, and it just kind of, it chains in the hierarchy down from there. With the more complicated classes requiring a huge array of different combinations. And they usually have a pretty decent payoff. Although sometimes you might just want to jump into one class, grab a passive, which you can carry with you with that character to a totally different class, and that's like the only thing you'll have. So you can really mix and match to your heart's content based on what you want that character to accomplish.
How much ability to grind is there to like kind of min-max your party?
Infinite, yeah. So basically,
like with Fire Emblem, there are limited encounters, and so between major story plot points, you can't do a ton of grinding. It's not unlimited. It's there is a limit. At least,
yeah, you can grind as much as you want. Experience is determined by actions taken in combat. So if I do a thing to an enemy, I'll gain a certain amount of experience points for that character based on the level differential. So if a level 1 hits a level 20, they'll gain like 99 experience in that hit. Of course, that person's probably going to die, and so it's not wise to do that.
If you died, you not get the experience?
No, you still get it, but like then the character's out of the battle, so if you don't revive them, they can't continue to earn experience. So it's just not an efficient way to do it, is what I was saying. The ability points, the AP that you earn to actually apply towards your job class. So in Final Fantasy Tactics, the original that was on the PS1 and remade for the PSP, you would get job points based on actions as well. So you get experience and job points. In this one, you only get job points at the end, which makes grinding the jobs themselves, the classes, a lot slower. I wish that it was done on action rather than at the end, because you only get like on like a new mission where you do it for the first time, you could get like anywhere between 200 and 400, where 200 to 400 points, excuse me. And then the person who performed the best according to whatever metrics they have, I don't know what they are, but basically they're the MVP and they get like an extra 35% bonus, which is fun. That's kind of a nice little thing. But it just makes it a lot slower. And then if you repeat levels, you get a far reduced amount, probably like almost like 50 to 40% less. But I've got the difficulty down a little bit because, like I said last week, you've got sliders where you can pretty much just say all the enemies are going to be like 10% lower than me all the time, or they're going to be 10% higher than me all the time. When a character dies, they're dead forever, or when a character dies, absolutely nothing happens, which is the one I'm playing on. And so you can set it to as difficult or easy as you want, which is super nice. And you can do that at any part of the game. You start the game off, it lets you set those settings, but if you're finding it too easy or too difficult at any part, you can bump them up or down.
So let me ask you this. If you are going to be such a casual, why don't you just play Pokemon Snap?
Because it's not out yet. I will as soon as it's out. We are the number one Pokemon Snap.
You're not going to
Pokemon Snap.
You're not going to spend $60 on Pokemon Snap.
No, absolutely not.
I will not let you.
No, I don't want you. You can take away my wallet if I do.
I'm gonna finally play all of Pokemon Snap just to spite you guys.
Oh, I can't, dude. There's nothing better than spite playing. Nothing better. The way items are done are especially interesting. So you have a certain number of items. Your stock is set at the beginning. So I've got like 2 potions, some Phoenix Ashes, which revives enemies, etc., etc. Those refresh every battle. I can only use a certain number of them in combat, though. So I can only use those 2 potions that heal like for 50 hit points. And then once I've used them both, I'm out until the next battle. And then you can get materials from enemies, whether it drops when you kill them, whether you steal, or the environment sometimes has a spot where you can go up to and like gather it. And then you can craft better versions of those items or craft more uses of those items. So it's a fun way to balance, because items can be very abusive in these kinds of RPGs. Like, yeah, it's hard, but I had 99 elixirs, so it didn't matter. And while that's totally up to the player to hoard those 99 elixirs or use them or not use them, you know, sometimes it's nice when the game, you know, does it for you. It balances itself. You don't have to balance for you. And I really like that. You can craft gear, which is something that you could not do in any of these kind of tactics games that I've played before. Again, using those materials, you can craft some really weird stuff. Some of it is like, hey, you can turn into a werewolf now. You have access to the werewolf class, or you have boots that'll like let you jump 20 tiles in the air to get to really hard to reach places.
Is it like Final Fantasy Tactics where the abilities came from the weapons?
That would be Tactics Advance, and no, it is not.
Okay.
Yeah, Tactics Advance basically was kind of a combo or this is a combo of Tactics of the original and Tactics Advance. So you gain AP, but like in Tactics Advance, you gained AP at the end of the battle. That's how they did it too. They did experience on all actions and then experience at the end. And then, yeah, like Sean said, you would earn that AP and it would be on a weapon. And then while you had that weapon, you would be able to use the ability. And then once you mastered it, you would be able to take it with you and swap it out for a new weapon, which I like that system too. It's really fun. And then that's the last thing. Oh, I was just going to say, it's if you go to like how long to beat or how long to play, it averages about 37 hours, which is, you know, pretty meaty, but also kind of standard for these kinds of games. I'm interested to see how much longer they can stretch the story out, unless I'm kind of speeding through it, because I'm still only at about like, I don't know, 13 to 15 hours. So like, you know, pretty much a little less than half according to that stat. But I tend to, especially because I'm playing on easier mode, I play through games a little faster. So yeah, but I'm having a good time. I'm just going to keep, this is my Switch game right now. I'm just going to keep chipping away at it while I play my next game, because I've been playing more Kingdom Hearts 1, and I don't have a lot to say about it. I am going to write a nice little script and do a totally separate video about that. We'll see how good that turns out when I do my Kingdom Hearts rankings, starting with the first one. All I want to say is that, Ursula, you can suck a butt, because you are easily the worst boss in any game I've ever played, and I'm glad you died a gruesome death skewered on the bowsprit of that ship.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. No, she's awful. Oh my gosh. So Atlantica is, you know, the Little Mermaid place, which has its problems because you're underwater. And it's not the only place, but it's the first time in the game.
Water levels are always notoriously terrible.
Yeah. And you know, it's honestly not that bad. The only problem is now you're moving in 3 dimensions where previously you weren't. It's really more like flying than swimming. That's kind of how they treat it, because later you go to Neverland and you can fly there too. And instead of being underwater, you're just in the air. And it's really not that hard to control. But the boss fight for Ursula is when she's gigantic, like she is at the end of the movie.
Yep.
And she's got the trident, and she's just casting this lightning bolt thing constant. Like the entire arena, it just has these random lightning bolts, and you do not move fast underwater. There's no dodge roll either, which up until this point, you have been heavily relying on this dodge roll ability that it just took away from you. There's no equivalent to it underwater. And then halfway through the fight, she starts doing this move where if you don't use the super swim ability, it just does this huge AoE around her, so you have to get out of there, and she'll do it like 4 times in a row sometimes, and then near the end she stops, like the audio cue where you know she's about to do it just stops. She does the physical one, so if you can still see her face, you know to get out of the way, but she just, like, I don't know if it's a bug or a really cheap trick from the developers, but oh my gosh, I hate this boss fight. It's just so bad. I must have died 6 or 7 times on that, and up until now I hadn't died on any of the bosses, maybe once on one of them, but aside from that, it's terrible, and it always has been. It's always been one of the worst boss fights in the entire series, let alone that game. But I love Kingdom Hearts 1. So. And then finally, bringing it back to Super Mario 3D World, I didn't play this too much this week, but over like the Christmassy New Year's break, busted it out on the Wii U, and I got Juliet and Rachel into it, and we've been playing as a family, and it's goofy fun. There's, it shows how easy it is, though, that I can, like, not that it's a team game. You don't need them to do anything as long as they don't die too many times, because they give you like 13 lives, and as long as they don't fall off the edge of the map every 4 seconds, it's easy enough to get to the end of the level. But it's funny because it does this point system like Mario games have in the past, and if you're playing with more than one person, it basically gives you ranks. Who got the most points takes first, second, third, and fourth, and so on. First, Julie gets so salty every time because she loses every time because she's constantly falling off and falling behind. She's not doing anything that gets points. She's like, how come I didn't come in first? I'm like, well, because you didn't do anything except fall. And like, she's doing it intentionally. She wants to get caught up in the bubble, because when you get, like, let's say I run off the screen, or I run forward and the camera follows me, it will put her in a little bubble, and until she jumps out of that bubble, she just follows me, like free from harm, but kind of helplessly as well. And she just sits in there the whole time. And then I get this crown when I'm first. And she gets so mad when I have the crown. Even though she can take it from me, she doesn't know how. But it's funny.
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fun because, like, Rachel's like, she's enjoying it too. I really wish the fourth, so you can play as Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad, and they all have slightly different ways of controlling. Like, Peach's floaty mechanic from Super Mario Brothers 2 is back. Luigi has that high jump with the kicky legs. Mario is average, and then Toad is the fastest, like, on, like, the ground. Like, he runs the fastest. I wish it wasn't Toad. Wish it was like another girl character, because nobody wants to be Toad. Or it could be Toadette. I think you can unlock
Rosalina at the end there.
Really? Oh, interesting. You probably have to do a lot of stuff, though.
I think so. I think once you beat the game, you can unlock her, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun because I'm playing with my family. If I was playing by myself, I probably would have beat it already. Like, at least just gotten to the end, because it's really easy. I don't know, maybe the last couple of worlds just kind of like really crank it up, but even as far as like easy Mario levels go, these are not hard at all. Like, not even kind of. Finding the green stars, because there's 3 of in each level, that's a little trickier, but I still haven't found one where I'm like, oh, I have no idea where this is. I have to look it up. It's really easy. And that's kind of like, I would have been really disappointed at launch instead of, now 8 years removed practically, because this came out in 2013. So.
And I played it in 2013, and I played it over Thanksgiving with my 2 brother-in-laws, one of which is not a gamer, and one of which who is a pretty heavy gamer. And I gotta say, we had a ton of fun just because, like, I think if you're a hardcore gamer and you're going into this for the challenge, like you said, you'll probably come up disappointed. But if you play this with maybe people who aren't traditionally gamers, I think you will have a lot of fun.
I would love to play with people who I would love to play with you guys, basically, because there is a competitive nature to it in the point thing. Yeah. Like, we would just be constantly smashing into each other trying to get the crown from the other person,
throwing
which
each other
would
off
increase
the level. That's exactly what
yes,
we were
you can
doing.
pick people up. Yeah, it's so funny because I'll do it. No, Rachel will do it by mistake. She's like, "What's happening? Why am I carrying you?" And I'm like, "Because you ran into me while you were holding that button." And it's like every single time I have to explain to her why that happened.
No, well, they eventually caught on, and we did get to the point where we were just like trying to throw each other off and whatnot. Yeah. Like, we're a team, but at the same time we're competing, and that element of it was unique, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it reminds me there was a multiplayer mode in the very first Super Mario, the new Super Mario Brothers that came out on DS. You could play like a local ad hoc like kind of like a battle sort of thing, but it was just, I remember playing that with Robert and Kit and maybe Sean. I don't remember if he was there. We only played it like 2 nights. It was one of those things where it's like that was our favorite thing for 48 hours and then we never touched it again. But I remember I haven't laughed that hard. Like it was a very special kind of belly, mirthy laugh that just doesn't happen or come along that often. It was just so stupid and so fun the way that like you would think you had it and then somebody just comes snatch victory away from you at the last second, but not a cheap way like in like Mario Kart with the blue shell, but just in the dumbest where did you come from, how did you do that kind of thing. So I would like to play that game that way, this game that way.
That was my exact experience because we played it over to Thanksgiving, and at the time my wife and I lived in Modesto, California, and her family came out. Modesto's not too far away from Napa, so over the weekend we did a Napa trip, and then which it's 2 hours away, so we ended up staying in San Francisco, but then like they stayed at our apartment for a few days as well. And that's when I got this game at basically 2 weeks after launch. And that was very much my experience. Like it was a very special time, like a unique thing that I don't think I can replicate, but was so fun for that weekend. And we rolled credits. We didn't beat all the special levels, but we like rolled credits on this game. It was amazing.
It's a good time. All right. That was my lengthy what I've been playing. Can't believe I talked that long for something where I've barely played anything this week, it feels like anyway. All right, Sean, your turn.
So I really almost played nothing this week. As I said earlier, I have 2 to 3 hours. So I played a little bit of Astroneer, basically the day after we filmed the last podcast. And that was just with my younger brother and one of my engineering buddies from college, and we just hopped on Friday night. My engineering buddy picked it up when it was on sale because I'd been telling him about it, and we played, for an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. It was fun, like it, because last time I played that game multiplayer is when you guys had all jumped in and none of us knew what we were doing, and so it was just total chaos. Whereas this was my buddy, my brother, and I all knew what we were doing. So it was crazy how quick we went from like we got here to now we're going to another planet and we're getting these resources and getting these upgrades and. As opposed to being like limited by trying to find resources and trying to figure out what to do, we were limited by the bits that you need. But we made like super fast progress. So that was fun. Hopefully I'll get to play with them again. If not this week, next week. And then I played just that super basic tutorial on Monster Hunter Rise where,
tell me about it. Tell me about it.
It taught me nothing.
Oh,
it was
stupid
like
tutorial.
It was like, this is how you move around. This is how you use the little the bug. The little whip bug thing. It had me swing my weapon once, and it was like these little. They remind me of like the copies from the little tiny dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Like I swung my weapon and I picked the guy with the axe sword. The axe that can turn into a sword. And I swung
axe.
Yeah, switch axe, and it killed them all in one hit, and that was it. And I was like, I really thought I was going to get like, this is how combat in this game works. Like that tutorial was terrible.
That sucks.
So
go play Monster Hunter World. It's a little bit better.
I've already got Monster Hunter World downloaded on my Xbox One, so I may load into that and try to learn the game off of that still, because I would like to give Monster Hunter a try. I think I'd enjoy it. I did find the controls a little like. The way that has you like select things and navigate the menus and whatnot was counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's very unintuitive.
That's fine. I'm usually always pretty good about adjusting to that, and so I'll get up to speed. But yeah, that tutorial, like you told me, is there, and I went and found it, and I clicked it, and I was like, this is like the most basic. It was like, oh, these are things you can find these bugs or birds in the map. They'll give you temporary stat boosts, and I was like, all right, but like, how do I fight? Like.
I don't remember how I learned how to play this game. Like I might have, I know for a fact that at some point I went online and I started watching videos because I'm like, I wanted to get to the next level, but that might have been when I really started learning how to play, if I'm being honest.
Maybe that's what I'll have to do. But like I said, that playing that tutorial was not even 30 minutes, and that's right. All I pulled off in the last week. It has been a very limited gaming week for me.
It happens. We are never free to play after all. Yeah. Jason, did you barely get around to playing?
Yeah, I got a couple. So I didn't game at all outside of the games that I played with my 4-year-old. And based off of last week's podcast, I wanted to try Age of Calamity with Luke. And we downloaded it, and he was really excited to try a new game, and we booted it up, and I only had the controllers that came with the Switch, so I had the Joy-Cons. And, every other game that I've ever played, you can just turn the Joy-Cons on their sides, and then, hey, look, it's its own controller. That's what we had been doing with Mario Kart. But when I booted this game up, and we had both our controllers turned on the side, and we tried to, press the L and R button to log in to, say, hey, this is the, orientation we're playing with the controllers, it would not let us. It said, no, you have to have 2 full controllers, which I've never encountered. And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry, Luke. And I had been looking for an excuse to buy a Pro controller. So I was like, do you want to get another controller and try this game? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, hey, Lauren, we got to buy a Pro controller to play this game. And she was like, do it. So that day we went out and we bought a Pro controller, and Luke and I tried to play Age of Calamity. But he's 4, and 3D movement's really hard, and he could not conceptualize how to not just run into a wall. He could not play that game. And
he's so funny. How they don't get it. I remember the same thing even just a year, not even 2 years, just a year ago, right before we got Animal Crossing. It clicked for her in Animal Crossing, but before that she would have just been running into the river the whole time.
It doesn't.
Just can't teach him.
It's bizarre. It's funny because he cannot really do isometric. He struggles with Hades, and when I say go up, he's like he doesn't get that. And it's the same thing with top down Legend of Zelda. What's the one that they just remade?
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, Link's Awakening. He can't really do movement in that. But he can do Smash Bros. He can do Rocket League. He can do Mario Kart. He loves those games. So anyway, we got that Pro controller. That game didn't really pan out for us, and I think we've got some work to do, which I want to do, and I think it'll be more beneficial for him to learn 3D movement and something a little more simple like Super Mario 64, which he's starting to grasp. So my point is that we played a lot of Mario Kart. This kid is addicted to Mario Kart, and it's so fun. And I'm playing this meta game where we're doing 100cc, and my goal is what I do is I pick the character and the kart configuration with the most acceleration. That way I can fall back to where he is in the lineup, say he falls back to 12, and go with him. And my goal is how high up in the rankings can I get him by playing offense and defense for him. So, if there's a shell coming, I'll jump up in position behind him so that I take the shell so he can continue going. And, and then once he starts accelerating and actually moving up, I'll be behind him and I'll have shells and different weapons and stuff where I can take out the people who are in front of him. And we've gotten pretty good at that. It's a lot of fun. And what I've learned that I never really knew existed in Mario Kart, maybe it's just because I didn't commit a lot of time to playing, it was there are all these little meta mechanics that are kind of hidden behind the illusion of a very simple game that if you are willing to go in depth and look into, it actually is it's a pretty robust kart racer in terms of what it offers you. And, every character has its own stats, which is unfortunate that you can't view the stat screen on the character selection screen. You can't view that until you go into the kart selection screen. But once you pick a character, that's your baseline. And then depending on what kart model you pick and what tires you pick and what glider you pick, that will impact your top speed, your acceleration, your handling, your traction, etc. And so I've been getting into that of I'm min-maxing the aspects of my character so that I can help Luke the maximum amount, and he almost always comes in between 1 and 4 now with me.
Nice.
So it's a lot of fun playing the meta game.
Have you taught him how to shake and bake yet? Are you evaluating it?
That's actually, funny enough, a mechanic that I recently learned about, where if you're going behind someone and you bump them, you draft off them. I didn't know that. I didn't know about jumping off the top of ramps.
Yep.
I didn't know about the fact that those different car components had different stats. I mean, I assumed it.
Some of this is new and some of it's not. Like, it's not all... Some of it's been there since 64, but obviously not everything.
My one question is why they changed the way that the starting boost worked. Because it always used to be like... Bah, 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 bah. And if you timed the pulses of your gas with when you hit your gas button, you would get this initial boost to start the race off. But now in Mario Kart 8, you have to as soon as the 2 clicks, it's bah, bah, and then you hit it right on the 2. And then if you hold it down until the race starts and you've timed it perfectly, you'll get that initial boost.
That was always my understanding how it worked.
No, that's not how it worked in, say, Mario Kart 64.
It's been too long for me to remember either.
That'll be another thing for corrections, but if I get that one right, that means I'm 3 for 3 this pod.
That can't be. Can't have that happen.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure they changed the way that initial boost worked.
Maybe.
That and, like I said, jumping off the top of ramps, little things. The skid mechanic or the drifting mechanic, if you double tap the R button, you'll hop and you can drift. And if you drift long enough, you'll get 1 level of boost. But if you continue to drift, it changes from orange to blue or purple. I can't remember.
Purple's
and then
the final one. It's the third one.
And so you'll get this the longer you drift, the bigger your boost at the end once you release.
Drifting's essential for maintaining speed on sharp turns in those higher CCs.
Dude, 200 CC is insane. It is insane. I can barely play it without smart steering on. It's crazy.
200 or 150?
The top is 200. 200.
Yeah, no, 200 is too hard. I can't do it.
I can't place any higher. I think the top I've ever placed in 200's 4th. And I was trying. I was
exactly. Put your best foot forward.
I think for 200, you pretty much have to have the maps memorized, and it would be a lot of fun if you had the maps memorized, because then your drifting and all that comes into play. But
it's a great game. Really good. There's a reason really that it's still selling like insane for a game that old at full price. That game still charts, not just Nintendo charts. It charts regular charts constantly. It tops regular charts constantly.
I'm falling in love with it. And I've never been a Super Mario fan, but Luke's obsessed with cars and he's obsessed with Mario. Of course. And this is the Venn diagram of Luke is this game, and he just freaking loves it.
Yeah, every time you bring it up, I'm like, man, I need to get my copy back because it's physical. And I know I could download it from Matt's and play it there, but I don't want to have to worry about that. I want to be able to play my own copy of it.
I'm getting to the point where I might buy it just so Luke doesn't have to worry about connecting to the internet in the car to validate that I'm Matt in air quotes. I can totally play this game. Just get him his own copy so he can always play it.
Perfect.
Anyway, sorry. That was long-winded, but I've never been a huge Mario Kart fan, and because I'm being forced to play it, honestly, we probably literally put in, I don't know, close to 10 hours since we last podcasted.
It's like 1/3 of Final Fantasy VII.
I know. And it's just Mario Kart. And so it's forced me to be well, what are the intricacies of this game? Because it's got to be more than surface level. And the more I discover, the more I'm oh man, this is a good game.
Yeah. Cool. All right. That's what we've been playing. Tell us what you've been playing. Tweet it. Email. Comment on the video.
If you dare.
If you dare. But don't, because we hate Pokemon Snap and our vitriol will just bleed through the video into your poor, pathetic life.
And I won't apologize.
You were very unapologetic.
About that, yeah.
Yeah. Sean was frightened about our animosity. All right. Ready for the topic of the week, or you got to run off?
For a little segment I like to call Drink Break!
Oh my gosh. All right, time for the topic of the week. So earlier we talked about Lucasfilm's games coming back from the dead. LucasArts coming back from the dead. So what better thing to talk about than our favorite LucasArts games, which isn't just Star Wars. They made the Lego games, which, well, they made the Star Wars Lego games, and they made or published the Star Wars Lego games and the Indiana Jones Lego games, not the Lord of the Rings ones, but they made Monkey Island and some other stuff too.
Say Grim Fandango, the old point and click style Indiana Jones games back when those type of games were big games.
It was always so funny that was kind of like their niche. Like, it was not their only niche, but like they did have quite a market of, we're also point and click adventure. That's totally a thing that we're going to be invest a lot of time in. Probably if I have to imagine, they probably just bought some developer or company that did it, and they're like, hey, do it for, just keep doing it and we'll keep paying you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Sean, you got a bunch, if I'm not mistaken, so give us a few of your favorites.
Okay, so I went ahead and did like a top 5 that were pretty much of my 5 favorite LucasArts games. One thing I did do was if there were multiple games in a series and I picked one, I wouldn't consider the rest. So you're not going to get, this list isn't going to get flooded with 3 Rogue Squadrons.
Okay.
And then, a big thing this made me realize was I played a little bit Grim Fandango, but I was super young. Same with it, I played like the old X-Wing games, which is really kind of the most recent Star Wars Squadrons is really a continuation of those classic X-Wing games. And I played one of those when I was probably like 5 or 6, and I remember loving it, but also having no idea what I was doing. And I have this like super fond memory, even though clearly I was totally lost. But I'll give you a couple of my honorable mentions that didn't make my top 5. Heir to the Empire, Star Wars Heir to the Empire, which was a Nintendo 64 third-person shooter where you played as Dash Rendar and was a video game adaptation of the comic / the novel. I remember just like, that was a really fun game. It was probably the first like 3D third-person shooter I think I'd ever played.
Was that Heir to the Empire?
It kicks off and it's the battle of Hoth. So you have like this like very identifiable Star Wars moment, and then it kind of goes off and does its own thing. But that's also where, you fight Boba Fett in that game. I think it's probably the first game, if it might be the only game where we got to see IG-88 and all his robotic bounty hunter glory, which is kind of was the basis for IG-11 that we got in season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of on a similar vein would have been going to the GameCube was Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which came out after episode 2, where, Tamora Morrison had played Jango Fett. And so this game has it's kind of almost a lead up of Jango's story lead up to it. Now that was just another one of those kind of third person platformy, but combat games with a large selection of weapons and being another fun game to play. And I never beat that one. There's like a prison level that younger Sean was never able to get past. It's actually a game. I was thinking as I was writing this list, I wouldn't mind seeing if I can find that like backwards compatible, like the Xbox version, and download it and play it on my Xbox One. And then getting into my top 5, we have actually a non-Star Wars game, which is Zombies Ate My Neighbor, which was an old Super Nintendo 2-player top-down kind of wacky parody, like horror movie trope parody. And Karch, I'm sure you and I played that together.
Potentially. I played it with somebody for a really long time once. I don't know if it was you or not, but we got really far into it and then we died, and games like that back then.
Some of those games too, you had your set lives, and if you didn't beat the game, you went back to the beginning. There was no saving what level you were on, I think, in Zombies Ate My Neighbor. But
so that one didn't even have like the code system where you could put in like a code to
maybe. I don't remember. I don't think so.
Like, I remember there being like a way to put cheats in. A lot of those games, you started seeing that in Super Nintendo kind of going hours where they have a little thing where you could go put cheats in. But I don't remember there being a way like, let me put this code and jump back to the level. Or there might have been, and like I was young enough and illiterate that I couldn't understand how to write them down.
Sure. Karch, was that one on your list?
Yeah, Zombies Ate My, in no particular order, Zombies Ate My Neighbors would have definitely been on my list. I actually, when I got my SNES Classic, I quote unquote hacked it and I put some extra games on it because it's just an emulator. That's all it is. It's just a really good emulator. And so I put that on there and I played it for about 30, 45 minutes. I was like, yeah, this game is pretty fun, but it wasn't fun enough to play by myself, and like I didn't have quite that nostalgic thing. But like if ever we are in the same room, let's definitely boot it up and play it because
like I said, it's wacky. Your initial weapons is like are squirt guns, and you're just fighting zombies that die to squirt guns, and then the weapon selection. You get things like soda cans that you shake up and throw, or they're grenades for the game, and I think you can throw like dinnerware, and there's the like the inflatable punchable clowns, so you can use those and they distract enemies.
That's right, I remember those. I remember them because that's the level where you fight. It's like the Jason. It's like this fat guy with a Jason mask and a chainsaw, and he's running around the level cutting through walls trying to chase you down. And I remember as a child being like I hated getting to that level. I was terrified of that level. Yeah, and it's like it's complicated. Like you're not just killing the enemies. The enemies are these huge obstacles getting in the way of your goal, though, which is to find like various keys in certain amounts of time. Like there's this huge time component, because you can get through the levels in a certain amount of time, but if you get through it faster, you'll get like the bonus points or the bonus levels or the bonus stuff or something. Like the faster you are, the more efficient you are at getting these keys and unlocking these doors and getting through this maze, basically, the better off you'll be. But yeah, it was a really fun game.
So, so that's on my list of top 5 games. That was my number 5. So,
all right,
I've got Jason, an honorable mention.
Go ahead.
So this is kind of funny because I actually just learned this today. But in my mind, I always associate adventure games with Double Fine, and I always associate Double Fine with Tim Schafer. And so in my head, I really thought Monkey Island was a Double Fine game, but it was not. It was co-designed by Tim Schafer, but he worked for LucasArts Films at the time, and this was back in the 80s. And so honorable mention to Monkey Island, and I don't recall which one of them I played. It could have been the second one, but he worked on both the first and the second one. And it was published by Lucasfilms Games. But I remember some of it, but not all of it, because this was like the mid-late 90s. So I can't really speak to it other than I have enjoyable memories of it. I remember certain aspects of it. I remember the puzzle elements and like the role-playing elements where you have to, you're going into the bar and you have to pretend like you're not after the key, but you really are after the key. And so how you converse with the characters will kind of dictate how easy of a time you have finding it, and are you rude to them? Do they respond to that sort of thing? And as I recall, this is probably my first encounter with what you could call agency in gaming, was like the choices of the dialogue choices in that game, at least in my memory. So shout out to that game, because I do think it kind of, I don't know if it pioneered that component of gaming, but it certainly fleshed it out.
No, I mean it didn't, but it was very good for its time. There's a reason that it persists to this day. It gets remade constantly. It's very funny. It is one of the first fun adventure games up until that point were basically just King's Quest and King's Quest knockoffs, which may have had some like dark humor in there because like the ways you could die basically by doing really mundane, silly things. But Monkey's Island was a constant barrage of jokes, but in a great way. Like it was super silly, but not like in a dumb way. Like I don't like Day of the Tentacle. I think it's too much that thing. It's too much of what it is. It's like oh okay. Like now the jokes are literally just like every second step is like, here's a funny pun or sardonic humor, and it's just like I couldn't take it. But I enjoyed Monkey Island too for what I've played of it.
What about you, Karsh? Do you have any honorable mentions?
I didn't make my list until like 4 seconds ago, so not really, but I will give a little shout out to both one of the best Star Wars Jedi games I've ever played and also one of the worst ones, which is Jedi Power Battles for the PlayStation 1. Do you remember playing this with me, Jason?
Was this the one where you could be like Obi-Wan Kenobi?
You could be, it was basically Phantom Menace, the game, except you could be Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Plo Koon, Mace Windu, or some chick whose name I forget.
And there was like a campaign where you kind of play through the first. Yeah, I totally remember this game, and I freaking loved this game.
Yeah,
it was like a side scroller in a way, right?
There were a lot of, I mean, it was completely 3D, and there were platforming bits that were just like the gameplay mechanic. There was a nugget there that was really good, but overall the implementation of the mechanics were just awful. Like, I loved the level up system. I thought that was clever.
That's what I was just gonna say.
It was really good, and like the abilities that you got were really fun and very different. Like, each Jedi, all 5 of them played very, very differently. Obviously, they had the baseline abilities and deflection and lightsaber combat, but like, you know, Qui-Gon was a caster basically. Obi-Wan was your totally full-on melee quick dude. Plo Koon was your heavy boy. He was the big boy who'd make the big slashes, and he did the big whirlwind attack, and his name was Plo Koon, and we didn't know who the heck Plo Koon was. Some squid dude. Obviously, he got fleshed out later in this in the extra materials and stuff, and he's awesome. He is a really cool character, but
yeah,
at that time we didn't know who he was. He had a yellow lightsaber. We're like, what? Yellow? What? Huh? But it was great. So yeah, shout out to that. Terrible game. I got all the way to the Palace in Naboo. It was the furthest I ever got. I never got to the very end, presumably, where I fought Darth Maul on Tatooine. And I didn't fight him at the very final confrontation, though. Too hard. Game's too hard. It gets really ridiculous. It's also cheap. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like you can just die for the dumbest reasons. And then similarly, like, maybe there was a save system or password, but I don't remember because I feel like I always had to start over. Or maybe my memory card was broken for some reason. I don't know. It was stupid, though. So that's why I only get a shout out.
Do you remember what the female character looked like?
I want to say she might have been like, and I say this in the nicest way, she was a person of color. Like, I just don't remember exactly what she looked like. She might have had like, I want to say she had like a hair, either it was a head, like, they weren't tentacles. She wasn't like a Twi'lek, but she had like Brady things. And here, I'll just look it up while you guys talk about your next game. Or well, my first game, I'll say, I already said Zombie Ate My Neighbor. So Sean, go for your next game.
All right. So my number 4 game is a computer game, and it is Star Wars Rebellion.
Okay, I don't think I ever played that one.
It's a 4X game.
Go on.
So and it's not a great 4X game. There are certainly 4X games that do it better. It does. So 4X games tend to break down into when you're managing all your resources and building up your ships and in this case your planets, and sending off your characters, which are all the Star Wars characters. And by like all of them, I mean like, yeah, you know, on the Rebel Alliance side, you had Han, Luke, Leia. But like it went beyond that. Like, yeah, you had Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles and General Dodonna, Mon Mothma, but it went into expanded universe characters. You know, Talon Card shows up. Like it was, you know, at the time it probably pulled more from the expanded universe than any other game, and it might still have that. But then those games always have the tactical level, which is when you actually go into like battle. And that game for like planetary invasions with troops, it was a numbers game. If you basically had more than the enemy and RNG didn't totally go against you, you took the planet. But the fleet battles were actually like moves your ships around, but it didn't give you a lot of options. There wasn't a lot of high detail, so you couldn't be like, there wasn't this ability to like go and try to be like a Grand Admiral Thrawn. But it was still so cool to sit there, because I mean, you could play the game with like 20 galaxies or systems, each with like 10 planets. So you're talking about 200 planets, and you have certain criteria. Like the Rebel Alliance, you had to capture Coruscant, which was, you know, the head of the Empire, and you had to capture Darth Vader and the Emperor. And so to sit there and try to like, you know, because you needed mines, and you needed to build shipyards and facilities and troop training centers and manage all that stuff. Like it's a game that I spent a lot of time playing. I downloaded it on on my Surface 6, because I think it dates back to like 97. So my Surface 6 could handle playing that, and I played it underway for quite a while. Cause you just sit there with my little Surface Pen and tap through everything. But just a game I had a lot of fun playing. It was honestly, when I was younger, I played that game for so long, and I would just get destroyed. There's so much to do, because you can send all the characters on missions, and you got to worry about resources, and like younger Sean's brain could not handle the amount of like micromanaging detail I needed to beat that game. Whereas now I can play the game on like against the PC on like hard and destroy it, because like I said, it's not like, it's a very fun game, but the AI is not all that great too. So it's very easy to do certain mechanics that you can utterly cripple the AI and come out on top. And so, I mean, last time I played it without doing any of those things and still beat the AI. But just a game that I can think back to like playing it shortly after it came out and really struggling, and then playing it a year ago and still having a lot of fun with it. So that's my number 4 LucasArts game.
Cool. Very nice. And the character I was referring to in Power Battles, the female character you could play was Adi Gallia or Adi Gallia or something like that.
Okay. Does not ring a bell for me.
Still seems very fringy. Like, not.
I was wondering, I was more wondering, like,
comics
was it a
only
Shanti
kind of
or an
stuff.
Ayla Sakura or something like that?
Apparently, she's a member of the High Council during the clone. For all I know, she's in the prequels and just never paid attention close enough during those council scenes to notice who it was.
Fair.
All right. Jason, next up.
I feel like this is going to be another honorable mention, and we talked about it before the podcast, and I said you weren't allowed to use it, but then we just go. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
This is the Star Wars trilogy arcade game that any 90s kid would identify as the really cool Star Wars game at Chuck E. Cheese.
It was really cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I was really bad at it.
Oh,
so I don't know that I ever got my dollars worth because I think this was like a 4-coin experience here. But the trajectory, I think when you got in there, you would have to pick to start at one of the 3 trilogies.
You would always start doing, funnily enough, like, what was it? What would you
could pick whether or not you wanted to do A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi.
Right, and I always picked the one that started on, I think, Endor, where you
Return of the Jedi,
where you were like going
on
through
the
forest. Yeah, on the speed. Yeah, that was the one I was the best at because I could get to the Darth Vader encounter at the end. And so the way that it worked is you sat in this machine and you were like in a vehicle and you had this joystick kind of like to control everything. And so that's how it was kind of like tank controls and reverse axis, which made sense for the vehicles. But then once you got to the Darth Vader encounter, you were a Jedi
Boba Fett one
and
too.
You had this like joystick, but the controls were reversed. Axis. So it was very hard to figure out what direction you needed to point this joystick in to actually like block Darth Vader's attacks. And that is where I always died.
It wasn't even, so there were 2 parts to that because the blocks were one thing. Because like you said, they were inverted and that was hard. It was the attacks. You had to swipe across and just, you had to do it pretty horizontally or diagonally or vertically. And then so not only are you trying to reorient yourself, but now you have to do it like both ways. And then that was the kicker. And if you didn't hit them every time, because you could, I say them because you were talking about Darth Vader. That was after you did all 3 of them. And then if you did after 2 of them, you would fight Boba Fett as like a bonus round. And that's smug.
Yeah, because you do the first Death Star, and then you would do the Battle of Hoth and the Snowspeeder, and then you would go through Echo Base. If you beat that, you would then you'd fight Boba Fett, which was just blocking. You didn't have to swipe against Boba Fett.
No, you had to swipe against him too.
No, there was no swiping.
Oh no, you're right.
Because you just had the block, and it would deflect his blaster bolts. And then Return of the Jedi was speeder bike, and then you eventually went on foot, and then you fought Darth Vader. And then if you had done all 3 and beat the Boba Fett and Darth Vader segments, you got to play the Battle of Endor, and you were back in the X-Wing doing the second Death Star run.
I want to say I actually did get there once.
I don't know.
I beat that game many a
Darth
time,
Vader.
and I eventually memorized like the Darth Vader fight where I could beat Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And I eventually could beat that game on only like a couple, needing only to put quarters in it again like once.
I had other I had to play the Simpsons arcade game. I had to play the Ninja Turtles arcade game. I didn't have all my tokens to give to the Star Wars game.
Plus, there was always somebody waiting for you. So if you lost, you had to get off and let them take their turn. So.
There was one I remember like buried in a corner, and it wasn't the one where you could sit down. It was just the standing one, so it had the joystick, but it was just like a regular arcade box, and it was like hidden in a corner somewhere at Disney Quest. The big 5-story arcade they used to have there at Disney Springs.
Yes, I never got to go there, but I honestly I heard literally heard legends,
and I remember knowing where that Star Wars arcade trilogy game was kind of hidden because there were like 2 sit-down ones that always had people waiting, but that stand-up one buried in a corner somewhere almost was always open, and I would go play through it because Disney Quest eventually got to the point, fairly shortly after it opened, it was a like pay X amount of dollars and you could just play as many games as you wanted.
Was that the one in Ybor City or whatever?
No, that's GameWorks.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. I never got to go there either.
Disney Quest is like Disney's version of that at downtown Disney.
Gotcha.
Now called Disney Springs.
They had it at Walmart, the local Walmart for the longest time. I remember we got off early. We went on a band event once at in high school, and the event ended earlier than we thought, but because we were basically excused for the rest of the day, we got to go home early, which was dope. So we went to Walmart, got some McDonald's, and then Kit and I played on because it was cheap. It was like cheaper than the currency conversion would have been at Chuck E. Cheese or something. So we took a crack at that while we were munching on some hamburgers.
Sweet.
Awesome. All right, that was a good pick, Jason. Although apparently it was only an honorable mention.
Well, whatever. I don't care. We call it what you will.
My next one would probably be Rogue Squadron, and I only put it just quote unquote low because it's just been so long since I played it. Like I never owned it. I rented it several times from Blockbuster though, and I remember just despite it being really hard for me because I just wasn't good at the flying, and the game was kind of like obtuse on certain missions. It wasn't always clear. Like you could just keep flying around for ages, and like if you had forgotten what's that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And if you'd forgotten what to do, oh well. Like you probably just had to like try to kill yourself, which was a lot harder than it sounded. So you usually ended up resetting the thing. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It's a really good game. Unfortunately, I never played much of the second one, and I don't think I've ever played the third one, but I wouldn't mind going back to it or a collection coming out maybe. You listening, Disney? Are you listening? Like, share, subscribe. All right, Sean, what's your next one?
Front of the show.
My next one is Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast.
That's my next one too.
Ding, 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 ding.
The one we all have in common.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Jedi Outcast. I'll be honest, I played the campaign for what are considered essentially the first 2 Jedi Knights games, which are Jedi Knight Dark Forces and Dark Force Rising? Dark Force Rising and Dark Force Rising 2, I think is what they're called. Or maybe it's Dark Forces 1 and 2. Which incidentally is where Dark Troopers come from, if you're curious. But those games follow Kyle Katarn, who's a mercenary who finds out he's actually Force sensitive and descended from a Jedi Knight, which I think makes him within the Star Wars canon. He might be like the first Jedi to show up after Luke Skywalker. There's a couple other ones I could think who might be close, but he's got to be pretty high up there.
Baby Yoda now.
Yeah, but this going to the old expanded universe canon.
Yeah, I know.
But so Jedi Outcast came out on the GameCube and I think the Xbox. I don't think it came out on the PlayStation 2.
It did not.
And I know I beat a single player. I don't remember the story of its single player at all. All I mostly remember is Karch and I playing that game, and basically loading up as many enemies on the opposite team, and then him and I be on the same team and just charging through these hordes of enemies.
And we would do a free for all,
lightsabers flying,
or not free for all. We would do just 2 of us versus them.
Yeah,
and then it was like what 20, maybe 15.
Something like that. Some
a large
number though. And they would always, there'd be like one small group of them, and then there'd always be the huge like clumped together group, and we just charged through trying to kill as many as we could before they took us down.
My memory I'm sure is poor, but like the AI wasn't that bad. It was pretty good, or we were just really bad. But it was a good combination, whatever it was, and it worked out in our favor as far as the fun factor. And we put them on. You could like set the aggression level, and we cranked it up as high as we could.
But to the mechanics of that game, I mean, the because when you had a gun, you were first person, and then when you pull out your lightsaber, you went third person. The guns were all fun. It's one of those, which I think was pretty common at that time, which is like you had a wide variety of guns, and all the guns had like a main firing and like an alt firing. So like the bowcaster would fire like one shot, or you could fire like, I think it would do like a spread shot, but the shots would like ricochet.
Very Quake-like.
Yes. But then the lightsaber, I remember, was cool because you had the 3 different stances. And that was the first time where, I remember them really kind of getting to this idea of like stance. Like you had like a heavy attack stance that was slow but powerful. You had kind of the balance, and you had the like short, tiny swipes but attacked very fast. And I just remember between that and all the force abilities, thinking that being kind of really cool at the time. So
and not to mention the fact that you could pick dark side or light side. Like, do you want to heal, or do you want to just do lightning? Like,
the powers were, and we would, there was a particular level that we would go to all the time, and it had a really wide open platform, and basically we would lure them out there because like that's where we wanted to duel out in the sun, out in the sky, and also just force push them off the ledge really cheaply.
Well, because if I recall, like the death message would be like so and so has been thrown to their death, and we thought that was
it had
awesome.
Death messages. Yeah, like maybe at some point they wanted this to be a more like massively multiplayer situation, like where you could play a bunch of people at once, like on PC, but it
which
never
would be
panned out.
amazing.
That would have been amazing. Like they need to do something like that. Where's that? I want my all. Like, can you do that in Battlefront 2? Can you just be a bunch of lightsaber people? Like I don't know if you can turn on like an all heroes and everyone can be like a Jedi or a Sith. I don't know if that exists. Like, come on, that's what we want, or at least some of us want. Just make a mode for that.
I gotta give some context. So this game came out in 2002. Like Sean said, it was the GameCube and the Xbox. It did not come out for the Sony console. Well, something I found interesting when I was looking into this is that Raven was the developer for the PC version, but Vicarious Vision was the developer for the console version. So they did the GameCube and the Xbox port. And they were also the ones who were responsible for recently the Crash Insane trilogy and Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake. So I thought that was really interesting.
But not responsible for the remake of Jedi Outcast that came out on the Switch.
Oh, well, hey, there you go. Full circle. But I just remember loving, I mean, as much as I loved the multiplayer in this game, I remember really enjoying the single player, what I remember of it anyway, which was like you kind of open and it is very much, very stereotypical of like, oh, I don't know where I am. I don't know my abilities. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm navigating my way through this enemy territory and I'm slowly learning my force abilities. So you kind of start out with nothing and then you get a blaster and then you get the force push. And I just remember really digging that.
My recollection, because by the end of the Dark Force games, Kyle Katarn is like a pretty powerful Jedi, and then there's some reason why that they set up in between the games he's decided to cut himself off from the Force. So over the course of that game's single player, you reestablish your bond with the Force and grow stronger as a Jedi again, or a Sith, because that's always been a hallmark in many of those games. Is it lets you go dark side as Kyle Katarn. Now, per the expanded universe at the time canon, he always picked the light side options, but you could be a pretty dark side Sith as Kyle Katarn.
Also on PC, I misspoke a bit earlier. You could play over the internet or LAN with multiple people, so that dream is technically possible. We could get a bunch of people together and play like 20 people.
Woo!
That would be cool. That game too, like that was the first time I played a game that had like that many. That you could have that many like AI running in the multiplayer at the same time.
Yes, same here.
There's a lot of them. All right, Jason, what's your next one?
So that was one on my list for sure. Was Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. The only other one I had on my list that I played from LucasArts, and I did preclude anything that was licensed by them but not developed or published by them. So there were some games that were technically licensed by them that were not developed or published by them in recent years, since they kind of were disbanded. But at any rate, Star Wars The Force Unleashed. I played this on the PlayStation 3 back when it came out, and I just remember, for me personally, and this might sound like an overstatement in 2021, but this game to me was the light bulb moment of like, holy crap, this is third person combat next gen. This was my God of War for the PS3. This was what cracked that nut for me of like, holy cow, look at how nuanced the combat can be. It's not just hack and slash. It is very much, you can counter, you can parry, you can do these force abilities. So to me, I loved that game, and it was very linear, but I think it was apropos for the time, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That game came out in 2009, just for context. And I don't know if either of you played it, but I really enjoyed that game.
I played the demo, like the kiosk demo, not like a downloadable demo, and I enjoyed. I thought it was a very well made game mechanically. I later on went and watched all the like the cutscenes and stuff, and they're not bad. Like, it's not a bad story either. They're like this close to greatness. We were this close.
Sure, I gave it a little bit of leeway, especially since I'm not as much of a Star Wars fanboy as either of you. And I did enjoy the fact that I feel like if I recall, you have a little bit of say in the end. You can
pick light or dark. Basically, each major event lets you be, you can be Vader's dog, or you can be basically the seed of the rebellion that eventually forms. It's just one of those things. I feel like it just came out just a smidge too early. Not because not like oh, they should have released it like later, but like the concept of it, this idea of what a good Star Wars game, what any good third-person action game could be. Like, it could have been something amazing.
But if it had just come out 2009 is my point.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If it come out even in 2011, like, we'd all be remembering it fondly rather than just some people.
Yeah, it beat that curve of like third-person action games. I think just a little bit is what you're getting at.
I think it could have been, to me, for whatever reason, I kind of group it with the Infamous games. Because you have that kind of binary light dark decision, and it was kind of similar in terms of like the time frame of its release. And I don't know why it didn't catch on more with the IP of Star Wars, but for whatever reason, I do closely link it with the Infamous series.
It probably also didn't do any. I mean, 2005 would have been Revenge of the Sith, and the general reception of the prequels didn't do the larger Star Wars any favors for the next handful of years.
Sure.
People hated the sequel too, from what I remember. So
yeah, I do recall that as well.
It could have just put a bad stain on it. Like, I don't even know why they made one. Like, honestly, what a terrible idea. To then the way they did it. It wasn't like The Force Unleashed 2. Here's that gameplay you love so much, but with a new spin or story. It's Starkiller's back, but he's like a clone. It's terrible. It's like, why are you pooping all over it? Why?
Sure, but I just remember this game being like, this is such a cool Star Wars game. Like, this is everything I love about Star Wars, and totally a fun video game. Not trying to be more than it is. It's just a fun video game,
Yeah.
Yeah. He made his way into Soul Calibur 3.
I only played like half of it. I almost want to say I was like visiting someone, or I maybe even rented it. But I did enjoy it. Like, it is mechanically a very enjoyable game to play. So.
Yep. All right, my last 1/2, they're just grouping them together, are in the KOTOR series.
Yeah. That's
we've been talking about it frequently. Just really well-made games for the time. Like, I was kind of ragging on it last week for being old, and it's old, but it's still fun to play. I've just played the first one a lot, and so I think there wasn't anything new, and I was just playing it to play it, so I stopped playing it. The second one I've only played through once. I think I would have another more fun playing through it again.
I've never played the second one.
It's really good.
Yeah,
really good.
I really want to, because I've only beaten. I think I've only beaten the first one once. So I do want to beat my playthrough on the first one, and then I would like to go play the second one.
Mm-hmm. It's the main side character, the main like companion who's there from the beginning all the way through the end, is really well written. She challenges the ideas of like good and evil and what a Jedi and Sith are, and in a way that I typically find like, okay, either it's been done to death or cringy, but this was one of the earlier ways to do that in the mainstream. I don't read the books obviously, so I wouldn't know where they did that, but it was handled really well. And just FYI, I think it's the most fun in that game to go evil. Just okay, in my opinion, but either way works.
Should I be going evil no, because evil in the first one, you end up like killing all your friends.
Yeah, and so here's the great thing about the second one was it's just a straight up like improvement mechanically. Like you can agree with like the story of the first one might be better versus the second one, and the second one's a bit buggier and incomplete in ways. Like they had to rush it out in like less than a year or something like that. But it's mechanically so much better. You get your almost all your party members except for like two, like the Wookiee and the droids. Everyone else can be eventually trained and converted into a Jedi. They don't start out as Jedi, but except for like one person starts out as a Jedi. The rest of them, like as you grow, as the bonds increase and you have the conversations, which may or may not also lead to romance, you can basically be like, they're like, hey, I'm really close to you. I'm like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a Jedi. And you do, and they get a new class and they get the Jedi. And it's just, nice. It really adds to that, like, you know, companion growth thing. And then additionally, if they like you, for the most part, I think at least this might not be true for every character, but a lot of characters, as you make decisions, they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to be evil too. Or, you know what? I'm going to follow you into hell and back because I believe in your paragon of like righteousness and stuff.
So
they maintain their personality.
Are those both as Obsidian games, and what years?
The first one is BioWare.
Second one,
and the second one is Obsidian, and I don't know
or
the year.
It might be Black Isle, which is
no, it was Obsidian.
Okay, so Black Isle had become Obsidian at that point. That's essentially what happened.
Yeah,
gotcha. I just wanted to give context.
Interplay did away with Black Isle, and like the majority of Black Isle went and founded Obsidian.
Mm-hmm. The Old Republic came out in 2011. Technically, I guess the other one doesn't fall on LucasArts, but whatever. I don't really care. Oh wait, no, this is the Old Republic. I'm sorry, that was the MMO. That was way too late.
That's the BioWare MMO.
I was gonna say
right. Let's see, Knights of. Nope, got to spell it right. Knights.
2003.
2003, and then that was second
the first one. The second one was 2004.
2004.
I remember it coming out very quickly.
18 months, basically.
Like I almost wonder if they originally were planning to do almost like, you know, like a Baldur's Gate 2 and then a Baldur's Gate 2, the expansion thrown a ball, and then they're like, nah, we're gonna make a whole new game.
And for the record, LucasArts published the second one as well.
Yeah,
and
right. No, it is on this list now. Yeah. So, but yeah, both of them are great games. Obviously, if you love Mass Effect, but you've never played them, I would recommend you go back and play them. They're clearly the inspiration for the BioWare formula for the next like 20 years, basically.
Yeah,
because we haven't seen what Dragon Age 4 looks like. But they're great. Love it. Play 2. Everybody go play 2. It's on phones now.
Stop
probably
telling people to
if
play
I can
on
get
the
it backwards compatible on the Xbox, I'll do that. Or I bet my laptop could play it.
I was gonna say pay $2 for it on Steam and play it on your laptop.
Because then I could probably get the mods. Because I know there's mods that like add in a lot of the partially completed.
I hear those actually kind of suck. There's mods to make the combat a little bit better and like a little bit more balanced, but the actual removed content stuff, like it can like break your game and like cause like save stuff.
I'll just get the general bug fixes and go from there.
Right, exactly.
Make it look pretty.
I don't think they do that.
Only Skyrim.
I don't understand. So they make like Final Fantasy. There are mods to make like old Final Fantasy games look pretty, but not like that game. I mean, it's probably true. It just blows my mind.
Just not as popular, that's all. I'm sure there are some, but like they're probably just not good, you know? And there's not that many for the Final Fantasies. Anyway, Sean, did you have any final words on the KOTORs since that was also your number one?
No. We've talked about the KOTORs a bunch, and you really touched on everything I would have said. Did
you ever play the MMO?
Not that one. I did play Galaxies.
Oh, let's not get into that. That's a
sad story that I don't want to revisit.
Exactly.
So you guys are both done with games, right?
Yes.
Games? Yeah.
All right. Well, for your list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at my number one, which is probably pretty obvious at this point. But my favorite Star Wars LucasArts game is Rogue Squadron 2: Rogue Leader. Everything about the first game just done better. You know, you get to play a lot more of the highlights of the trilogy, but actually some of the best missions are not the rehashes of the major battles of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have that weird fog that because the 64 could only render so much at a time that basically obscures everything.
I remember that. Yeah, it just looks so much better. Like next gen, it just blew your mind when you played it for the first. Because doesn't that one open up on the Death Star?
The very first level is the first Death Star.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's that level. It's a level where you're like protecting a convoy, and then it's Hoth, and then halfway through Hoth, Luke gets shot down, and you play the rest of the game as Wedge Antilles. And the best part about that is it's Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles in episode 4, 5, and 6.
Perfect.
Comes in and voices Wedge for the entirety of that game.
Nice.
So I mean, it's just it's just such a fun game. So many of those levels are from like the first time you get to go take on a Star Destroyer and you're flying a B-wing, which I don't think you ever got to fly a B-wing in the first one.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Like there's an awesome, like, you fight that Star Destroyer and the next level it's crashed on a planet and you're trying to like take it out, and like AT-ATs come blasting out of the sides, and now you've got to like adjust because you're in a Y-wing and you got to figure out how to fight some AT-ATs in a Y-wing. And like, there's just so many cool levels, and and then a bunch of the unlockable levels were crazy. Just a solidly built game that, I mean, the only heartache I ever had that game was the final level is Attack on Death Star 2, and you if you're playing as an X-wing, you're Wedge and you blow the regulating tower, or you can pick the Falcon and you get to actually blow up the main reactor, but then you have to escape. And I remember at the time we had moved the 64 to like a back room, and when I got home from school and the sun was setting, it would glare horrendously on the TV back there, and I could not see to make all the turns in order to escape the Death Star. And I eventually had to like play the game late at night when everyone else had gone to bed, and I could get access to the TV again in order to finally beat Rogue Leader. But of all the Star Wars games, I definitely have played that one probably the most, except for maybe Rebellion, because I've played that recently. But
and what console was that for again, Sean?
That was GameCube. I don't know if it was on others, but I played it on the GameCube.
I don't think it was.
Very cool.
I would love to get. I mean, just to find a way to play that one again would be so much
just
fun.
GameCube. Factor 5.
Factor
5.
It's interesting, the Star Wars games that they choose to remake/remaster, because like Star Wars Episode 1, the Pod Racer game, I think that got a remaster.
It did. I know, right? Like,
and
that's
like,
so you weren't here.
Jedi Outcast, like out of the blue, got re-released, like got a release on the Switch.
But that one's deserved.
But not Rogue Leader.
Saying,
it is, but it's so random.
Interesting. Like, they're not going to remake Rogue Squadron 2. They're just not.
Or KOTOR.
Yeah.
So Factor 5 is the company that made Lair, the very much maligned PS3 launch title.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think they're gone now.
I haven't seen anything from them since Rogue Leader, so I
have
assume
a
they're gone.
series of canceled games.
I have a question for you both.
Anyway.
So,
yes.
Battlefront was like a brand of game that they kind of re-envisioned on the PS4 generation.
Correct.
Yeah, so there's the original Battlefront runs. There's a Battlefront 1, 2, and 3 that are, I think, Xbox 360
the PS2
games.
And people love those games,
PS2
so why
stuff.
weren't those on your list, is my question.
I never played them.
So I don't, if you look at my list, with the exception of Jedi Outcast, and for, I mean, none of the games I played were multiplayer, and so Battlefront doesn't really. It's purely a multiplayer, a competitive multiplayer game.
Okay.
And I don't. I mean, nowadays, after moving out and all that, I did get into playing like the Halos, and Destiny, and then I guess Titanfall 2. I'll play for competitive multiplayers. But when I was younger, I did not like first-person shooters, and I did not like competitive multiplayer games. I liked single-player games.
Okay, that explains it. I was just curious because I know those are very highly regarded, and
they're great. I mean, I did play them. They're great games, but they weren't games that were at the time in which when LucasArts was out there putting out games, they were not the type of game that I would have gravitated towards.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, people love them though. But like I said, I didn't even know they existed until many, many years later. I didn't seek Star Wars games out for the most part. Like I played a few. Usually it was Sean introducing me to one or two, and if I liked it enough, I might go find it on my own afterward. But except for a handful, I think somebody got me Power Battles. Like I didn't buy Power Battles for myself. I wouldn't do that to myself.
It was a good game, dude. I loved that game.
I will add.
It was fun. It was fun.
One thing to KOTOR that I love is because KOTOR came out 2003. That would have been right after the year after Episode 2 came out, in between Episode 2 and Episode 3. And LucasArts came to BioWare basically like, hey, do you want to make a game set like around the prequels or like a video game for the prequels? And they were like, no, but can we make a Star Wars game? And they're like, well, what do you got? And so BioWare was the one who were like, we're going to go really far in the past in order to do this and basically separate ourselves from what's going on in the prequels, and arguably made the better Star Wars product in that, or story in that time period.
Yeah, I don't know. So they're so afraid to go back in Star Wars. Like they're not afraid to go back to the well. They're definitely afraid to go back to like time before.
Interestingly, the new book series is coming out, and it's set in the High Republic, so about 200 years before the prequels.
I heard some buzz about either some new material was going to start going back.
It's the first,
there, but
it's going to be a series of like books and comics and whatnot. So I'll be honest. I mean, I would rather read that type of Star Wars stuff than read another Skywalker focused story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
so I may
that's maybe a topic for another day. But like, it would be interesting to kind of dissect what is considered canon now that Disney has the IP, because I know when they bought it, they kind of annihilated what was canon. But
I can talk to that in depth and detail.
I know you can, and that's why I don't know that we should do it today. But it would be
mere mortals can't listen to that conversation. Their ears. That is
one interesting that they did say that with these games coming out, Disney is committed to the games are going to be canon with the current continuity.
See, I mean, that sounds good, and we'll see. Maybe it will be, but that usually limits more than it like enhances. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was really wary of the Mandalorian and how that was going to be canon, but also clearly set in between the two tentpole, trilogy franchises, but they're doing it smartly by just tackling a very cool, very important, but almost completely, utterly untouched section of Star Wars mythology, which is the Mandalorians.
So
that's what KOTOR did. I mean, KOTOR went so far back in time to basically isolate themselves from the rest of Star Wars, so they could do what they wanted to do and not have to worry about interfacing with the rest of the continuity at the time.
So should Disney just give Jon Favreau full creative control?
That is certainly a discussion for another time.
Real quick shout out to the movie tie-in for Revenge of the Sith. It was pretty good.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say.
That was fun.
It played pretty well. I enjoyed it it was very reminiscent of the Lord of the Rings movie tie-in games.
Oh my gosh, those are so good. Man, that like early knots or aughts. Well, I don't know which it is, but that section of movie tie-in games, unparalleled. It will never happen again. It will never happen again.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up.
All right. Well, Karch thinks it wraps this up, ladies and gentlemen. We got nothing else. I think he did a pretty good job of controlling 4 drinks and Jason. So I want to commend you. We didn't get too off topic.
No, we didn't.
No.
The drink breaks were the largest struggle.
Well, we had 2. We always have 2.
No, it wasn't the number of them. It was how long it took you to actually go take your drink break. But now we're already talking about it again.
Yeah, we had discussions to have, But anyway, that is all we have for you this week. You all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
Except I'm not. Please don't put "We Storm the Capitol" in any of them. I know where his bathroom is in relation to that room.
He is all by himself in the house.
He is.
We storm the Capitol. We take no Capitol.
Apparently, they only came. When he described this to me earlier, it made it sound like they came up with an actual song, but it sounds like they only came up with 2 lines.
I guess they have half a chorus.
Because presumably it turns into like not a parody.
Shut up! That's a whole song. It's a whole song.
But then it makes it sound like you're on their side.
It's a parody.
It's not a parody if it's not obvious. It'll just sound like satire that can't be distinguished between parody, which is what happened to 4chan.
Oh my God, you're right. All right,
you have to put something later on in the song where it's clear that you're making fun
It
of
was
them.
a fake song, Karch. It was a fake song. Is that what you want me to say?
I just don't want it to be in the B-roll.
news.
I just don't want it to be the B-roll.
It doesn't need to be the B-roll. I won't make it the B-roll.